they're not just NBA players. They're CEOs, real estate moguls, and billion-dollar brand owners hiding in plain sight. Behind the highlight reels and the sneaker deals, some of these guys have built entire empires that most Fortune 500 executives would envy. We're talking private jets on standby, entire tech and startup portfolios, ownership stakes in companies you use every single day, and business deals so massive they make front office execs look broke. Inside these players' massive empires, nothing is what it seems. Now, NBA players are already some of the highest paid athletes on the planet. Max contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Guaranteed money most people can't even wrap their heads around. But here's the thing, the real money, the generational wealth, that's not happening on the court. It's happening off of it. Some of these players took rookie contracts and turned them into financial machines, smart investments, ownership deals, businesses that print money long after their playing days are over. And the way they live reflects it. We're talking mansions that look more like private resorts, car collections most of us would never even see in person, let alone sit in, and lifestyles that blur the line between athlete and billionaire. So today, we're pulling back the curtain on exactly how they built these empires, the investments, the businesses, the real estate, all of it. And we're starting with a guy who's barely a few years into his career, but is already reshaping the entire league and cashing in like a seasoned vet. Let's get into it. Starting with Victor Wembanyama. Yo, what is good everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, I need y'all to hear me out for a second, because what I'm about to show you is genuinely one of the craziest come-up stories in professional sports right now, no cap. We're talking about a 21-year-old kid from a small suburb outside of Paris, France. A kid who grew up in Nanterre, not Beverly Hills, not New York City, not some rich neighborhood, Nanterre. And in just 2 years of being in the NBA, this man has quietly built a Texas empire that will make your jaw drop. We're talking about a $4 million mansion with 20-foot ceilings custom designed for a 7'4" frame. A house so big, so tailored to one man that they literally had to change how high they hang chandeliers. We're talking about a Louis Vuitton ambassadorship sitting alongside Carlos Alcaraz and Naomi Osaka, rocking 4 LV fits before he even turned 21. We're talking Nike deal, custom sneaker line, a brand new signature shoe with his own logo, French real estate, tech investments, and a recovery compound in San Antonio that has cryotherapy and hydrotherapy built in like he's running a sports medicine clinic out of his crib. And the craziest part, this man is still just getting started. So if you want to see exactly how Victor Wembanyama, the NBA's so-called alien, has turned 2 years in San Antonio into a full-blown empire, then you need to stay locked in for this entire video. Because by the time we get to the end, you are going to understand why people are saying Wemby doesn't just live in San Antonio, fam. He basically owns a block of it. Let's get into it. Starting things off with Victor Wembanyama, because this man is genuinely unlike anything the NBA, or really any sport, has ever seen before, and you can't talk about his empire without first understanding who he is and where he came from. Victor Wembanyama was born on January 4th, 2004, in Le Chesnay, a commune just outside of Versailles in France. He grew up in Nanterre, a working-class suburb west of Paris, and started playing basketball at a young age because, honestly, what else are you doing when you're 7 feet tall at 16? By the time he was playing professionally in France for Metropolitans 92, a Paris-based pro team, scouts from every corner of the basketball were already losing their minds. This wasn't just a tall dude who could maybe dunk. Wemby was blocking shots like a center, handling the ball like a guard, shooting threes like a small forward, and doing all of it at a size that the sport had literally never seen. Not Shaq size, not Kareem size, something different. Something that didn't fit any mold anyone had made before. When the 2023 NBA draft came around, it wasn't even a conversation. The San Antonio Spurs had the first pick, and they were always taking Victor Wembanyama. The only question anyone was asking was, how long before this kid becomes the face of the entire league? The answer? About 18 months. When Wemby landed in San Antonio in the summer of 2023, the city went crazy. And I don't mean like, oh cool, a new player crazy. I mean, people were lining up outside the arena. Merchandise was flying off shelves. And the Spurs, a team that had been rebuilding and hadn't had a real superstar since Kawhi Leonard walked out, suddenly had a reason to matter again. His rookie season numbers were absurd. We're talking 21.4 points, 10.6 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 3.6 blocks per game. He led the entire NBA in blocks as a 19-year-old rookie. Not just rookies, and then he won Rookie of the Year, which honestly was never in question. But here's what people outside of hardcore NBA circles might not realize. Wemby wasn't just impacting the game, he was impacting the culture. His tunnel fits alone were becoming news stories. His personality, quiet, thoughtful, a little mysterious, a little anime coded, was connecting with a generation of fans who didn't grow up watching the Spurs dynasty, but were fully locked in on this era. And with that star power came the money, the brand deals, the luxury lifestyle, the empire. Fast forward to right now, and Wemby has fully embedded himself into San Antonio. He's got property here, he's got a training setup here, he's got a life here. And unlike a lot of players who treat their NBA city like a hotel, just passing through, Victor Wembanyama has made San Antonio his home, and he's done it in style. Y'all, when I started researching this video, I genuinely thought it was going to be another one of those NBA player has a nice house type videos. But the more I dug into it, the more I realized this is actually a story about a 21-year-old building something real, something thoughtful. It's not just flex for flex's sake. Every single thing Wemby has invested in tells you something about who he is and where he's going. So let's start with the crown jewel. And real quick before we keep going, if you're new here and you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that subscribe button right quick before we keep going, because we got the full deep dive into his $4 million mansion, his Louis Vuitton empire, and a recovery compound that literally no other NBA player has coming up right now. Now let's move on to the crib itself, because when I tell y'all what this house is built like, you're going to understand why people say he doesn't just live in San Antonio. He owns a piece of it. When Wemby first arrived in San Antonio, he was staying in temporary housing like most rookies do. The league moves fast, you get drafted, you relocate, and you figure out the living situation as you go. But it became clear pretty quickly that finding a house for Victor Wembanyama wasn't going to be like finding a house for a normal person, or even a normal NBA player. You have to understand the challenge here, fam. This man is 7 feet 4 inches tall. That means standard door frames are basically at his chest. Standard ceilings feel like a closet. Standard furniture is something he can barely sit in without looking like an adult at a kindergarten desk. So when Wemby was looking for a Texas home, the list of requirements was going to be unlike anything a San Antonio real estate agent had ever dealt with. According to reports, Wembanyama purchased his San Antonio mansion for $4.06 million, doing it quietly through a discreet LLC, which is completely standard for high-profile athletes and celebrities who want to keep their addresses private. Smart move, no cap. The house itself was built in 2018, which means it's still relatively new construction, modern design, all the good stuff. And when you look at the specs, it's clear that whoever customized this place had Wemby's very specific needs in mind at every single step. The mansion spans 7,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 6.5 bathrooms. Now for context, 7,000 square feet is enormous. That's not nice house territory. That's small hotel territory. That's the kind of space where you could genuinely get lost going from the kitchen to the bedroom. The first thing you notice when you walk in, the ceilings. 20 feet high. The entrance alone has these massive soaring ceilings that immediately make you feel like you stepped into somewhere important. And the custom chandelier hanging in the main entrance area, built with extra clearance specifically so that Wemby, who again is 7'4", doesn't have to duck under his own light fixture. That's a detail that sounds small, but is actually kind of wild when you think about it. The chandelier in your house was designed around your height. That's not standard, that's custom luxury. The living room is open plan with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in natural light and connect the indoor space to the outdoor area. The design is described as sleek contemporary with a stone facade on the exterior, the kind of modern Texas estate that blends in with the high-end neighborhoods of San Antonio while still absolutely standing out. Now let's talk about the outside, because the backyard on this property is where things get really ridiculous. The standout feature is a resort-style infinity pool that appears to vanish into the Texas horizon, the kind of pool you see in luxury travel magazines, not in the yard of a 21-year-old athlete. There's also an outdoor kitchen and dining area for alfresco entertaining, which means Wemby could host a full dinner party outside without even needing to go into the main house. But here's where it gets really specific to who Victor Wembanyama is as a person and an athlete. The property also features a sports court where he can work on his game right at home, a private home gym with high ceilings and top-tier equipment for daily workouts, and a full wellness area with a sauna and massage room so he can recover without ever leaving his property. And on top of that, there are reports that he also invested in a separate customized recovery property in San Antonio that goes even further, featuring cryotherapy installations, hydrotherapy setups, and custom-built furniture throughout the entire space suited specifically to his frame. This man has built a recovery center and put it next to his house. That's not luxury, that's a whole operation. What makes this even more interesting is the fact that Wemby didn't just buy the nicest house he could find and call it a day. Everything about this property is intentional. The custom modifications, the wellness infrastructure, the private court. He's clearly not buying a home to show off. He's buying a home to perform, to recover, to maintain his edge. For real though, think about what it means to be 21 years old and already thinking about your recovery setup at home. Most 21-year-olds aren't thinking past the weekend. Wemby is building a compound, and that tells you everything you need to know about why people think this kid is going to be the best player in the world for the next 15 years. But that's nothing compared to what he's doing on the fashion side, because the Louis Vuitton chapter of this story is genuinely one of the coldest come-up moments we've seen from any athlete in recent memory. And it started way before most people even knew who he was. Now let's move on to Wemby's fashion game, because this is where things go from NBA player with a nice house to legitimate global luxury icon territory. And the way this deal came together is actually fascinating. Most NBA players who get fashion deals, it happens after they've been in the league for a few years, built up a fan base, got some all-star appearances under their belt, and then the luxury brands come calling. That's the usual timeline. Wemby did it differently. The relationship between Victor Wembanyama and Louis Vuitton started before he was even in the NBA, when he was still balling in France for Metropolitans 92. Louis Vuitton, which let's remember is a French luxury house, recognized that they had a once-in-a-generation French talent rising up, and they made that move early. By the time the 2023 NBA draft rolled around, the connection was already established, and you could see it in real time. When Victor Wembanyama walked into the 2023 NBA draft, the night that officially changed his life, he did it in a custom Louis Vuitton suit. GQ magazine was there, took note of the dark green ensemble, and the fashion world immediately paid attention. This wasn't just a young guy wearing something nice. This was a statement, a signal that Wemby wasn't just coming to play basketball, he was coming to be a presence in every room he walked into. Then in February 2024, right around the time of his first NBA All-Star Weekend, Louis Vuitton made it official. They announced Victor Wembanyama as their newest house ambassador, joining a roster of global icons that includes tennis superstar Carlos Alcaraz, Olympic swimmer Leon Marchand, skier Eileen Gu, fencer Enzo Lefort, and actress Saoirse Ronan. Let that roster sink in for a second. These are not random celebrities. These are world-class athletes and cultural figures who represent what Louis Vuitton sees as the future of luxury. And at 20 years old, Wemby was right there with them. Louis Vuitton's official statement said that Wemby has blazed a trail in his career on the court, not unlike the trail blazed by Louis Vuitton himself centuries ago. And when Wemby spoke about the deal himself, he said, and I'm quoting here, "To me, it's the best. It's the best partner I can think of." That quote goes hard, because this wasn't a kid starstruck by a big brand. This was a young man who clearly understood his own value and felt like LV was a match for where he was going. Now here's one of the most wild details in this whole story, and it perfectly captures the relationship between Wemby and Louis Vuitton. When Wembanyama was shut down during the 2024-25 NBA season with a blood clot in his right shoulder, which was genuinely scary, fam. Deep vein thrombosis is serious. Louis Vuitton didn't just send a get well card. They sent him a hospital gown with the LV logo on it, a hospital gown with the Louis Vuitton monogram print, so that even while he was laid up recovering from a medical situation, this man was still dripping in LV. That's not a brand deal. That's a relationship. That's a fashion house saying we ride with you through everything. That is genuinely one of the coldest brand loyalty moments I've ever seen in sports. The Louis Vuitton deal is important for a reason that goes beyond just Wemby gets free clothes. It signals that the biggest luxury brands in the world see this kid as a long-term cultural figure, not just an athlete. LV doesn't hand out ambassadorships like they're handing out energy drink sponsorships. They are selective. They are intentional. And the fact that they picked Wemby before he even played a full NBA season tells you that fashion saw something in him that even the sports world was still figuring out. At least the Louis Vuitton deal came with a gal, but Wemby's Nike situation? Gang, that's a whole different level of business, because we might be talking about one of the most valuable sneaker deals in the history of the sport. Nike's relationship with Victor Wembanyama actually predates the NBA. Just like the Louis Vuitton connection, when Wemby was playing for Metropolitans 92 in France, Nike had already locked him in. The deal was a multi-year footwear and apparel endorsement that was designed to carry over directly into his NBA career without missing a beat. When he was officially announced as the #1 overall pick in June 2023, Nike wasted absolutely no time. They posted on social media immediately, "All eyes on Wemby." That's not a coincidence. That's a brand that already had their guy locked down, was ready to activate the moment the spotlight hit. Now, the full financial terms of Wemby's Nike deal have never been publicly disclosed. And that's actually telling in itself, because when Nike has a deal they're really serious about, they tend to keep those numbers close. But sports marketing executives who were following the situation during draft season were floating numbers that would make your head spin. Sonny Vaccaro, the legendary sports marketing executive who is literally credited with bringing Michael Jordan to Nike back in the day, said publicly that shoe brands could present Wembanyama with a blank check, and there were reports circulating that Nike could offer Wemby a deal worth up to $100 million, which would have surpassed LeBron James's record-breaking $90 million deal. Now, whether those exact numbers are what was signed, we don't know for certain. But what we do know is that Nike treated Wembanyama like a franchise-level asset from day one, and his sneaker work has been elite. Nike has been releasing GT Hustle 3 colorways in collaboration with Wemby, including a special Halloween edition that dropped in October 2025, featuring a bright orange knitted upper with spindly root embroidery, black accents, and, this is the detail that goes hardest, a green swoosh on the side as a nod to Wemby's alien nickname. That kind of storytelling in a shoe design, that's how you build a sneaker legacy. On top of that, Wemby has his own custom logo as part of his Nike deal, something that not every Nike athlete gets. That's signature tier. That's the pathway toward a full signature shoe that carries his name, his story, and his brand identity. And he's already been spotted wearing unreleased Nike Nocta Glides, the collaboration line with Drake, that the public hadn't even seen yet, including during his famous first pitch at Yankee Stadium. When you're wearing shoes that don't exist yet in public, that's Nike saying you can wear whatever you want from our catalog, including stuff we haven't dropped yet. Wemby is also part of Nike's growing French ambassador team alongside Kylian Mbappe of Real Madrid, two of the most recognizable young athletes on the planet, both French, both representing a global vision for Nike's brand in Europe and beyond. When those two are seen together on Nike content, it's not just a campaign, it's a cultural moment. Here's what's crazy to me about the Nike deal, fam. Wemby wears a size 20.5 shoe, 20.5. Nike has to literally make custom kicks just for this man to play in. That's not a partnership, that's a science project. And yet Nike is fully invested, fully committed, in building a whole lane for him in their sneaker universe. The alien has his own world over there, and it's only getting bigger. Now, all of this, the mansion, the Louis Vuitton, the Nike empire, is already insane for a 21-year-old. But what really tells you that Wemby is thinking different from most athletes is where he's putting his money. Because his investment game, that's where things get really interesting. Now let's move on to the business side of Wemby's empire, because this is where you can see that this young man is not just spending money, he's building it. A lot of athletes, and this is well documented, not throwing shade, a lot of athletes make a ton of money early in their careers and don't necessarily build systems around that wealth. They spend, they enjoy, and sometimes years later, they find themselves in a tough spot financially, despite having earned tens of millions of dollars. It's a story that plays out over and over again. Wemby, from everything we can see, is taking a completely different approach, and the people around him deserve some credit here too. Specifically his agent Bona Indaya, who has reportedly emphasized long-term wealth preservation over short-term displays of luxury since day one of Wemby's professional career. According to reporting on Wembanyama's financial picture, his liquid net worth is estimated at around $10 million, which sounds like a lot, and it is, but it's actually considered modest relative to what his gross earnings have been. And the reason for that gap? He's reinvesting, he's building, he's putting money to work. On the real estate side, beyond this $4 million San Antonio mansion, Wemby has made investments back home in France, acquiring properties that total approximately $1 million. For a 21-year-old, having a real estate portfolio that spans 2 continents is not something you stumble into. That requires intentionality and good financial guidance. He's also been reported to be exploring tech investments with a target of up to $500,000 in yearly returns from that sector alone. That's the kind of diversified thinking that most people don't develop until they're in their 30s or 40s. And Wemby is doing it before he can even legally drink in the United States. He also has partnerships generating recurring brand revenue. His Rolex collaboration is expected to contribute in the range of $400,000 annually just from that single deal's marketing campaigns. What's emerging is a picture of a young man who is building financial infrastructure, not just a lifestyle. The San Antonio Recovery Compound, the French real estate, the tech investments, the recurring brand revenue, all of it points towards someone who understands that the NBA career, even a great one, has a finite length, and the real wealth has to be built for the time when the playing days are done. Y'all think about the mindset it takes to be 21, have millions of dollars coming in, and still be thinking about where you're going to be financially at 40. Most of us at 21 are thinking about what we're doing this weekend. Wemby is thinking about generational wealth. And with an agent like Bona Ndiaye in his corner staying up toward preservation over flash, this kid's financial future looks genuinely strong. That's not just an athlete's story. When you think about Jalen Brunson, what comes to mind first? The clutch buckets in the fourth quarter? The Knicks playoff runs that had all of Madison Square Garden shaking? Maybe that contract that had everybody talking when it first got announced? Because here's the thing, most people who follow the NBA think they know Jalen Brunson. They know the player, they know the leader, they know the guy who somehow became the heartbeat of New York City basketball without anybody really seeing it coming. But what most people do not know is what Jalen Brunson has been quietly building off the court. And I'm not just talking about a nice apartment or a couple of luxury cars. I'm talking about a full-blown New York empire. Real estate all over the city, business moves embedded deep in the 5 boroughs. Investments and ownership stakes that most players his age aren't even thinking about yet. The man has been stacking in silence. And when you actually sit down and look at the full picture of what he owns and how he lives in this city, it is going to hit completely different than you expect. So stay right here, because by the end of this video, you are going to see Jalen Brunson in a completely different light. This isn't just a basketball story. This is a money story, a lifestyle story, and it goes a lot deeper than most people realize. Let's get into it. Starting things off with the foundation of everything, and that means we have to talk about the contract first, because you cannot understand Jalen Brunson's New York empire without first understanding the financial base that made it all possible. Now here's where the story gets interesting right from the jump. Jalen Brunson is operating on a deal that has completely reshaped how people think about his value, both on the court and off it. His current extension with the New York Knicks is a 4-year deal worth $156 million. That breaks down to roughly $39 million per year. Now on the surface, people hear that number and think, okay, that's a lot of money, sure. But in the context of the modern NBA, for a player of Brunson's caliber and importance to that franchise, $39 million a year is actually considered a team-friendly number by league standards. And that matters, because it tells you something real about how Brunson operates as a person. He's not just chasing the absolute maximum bag at every single turn. He is thinking about winning. He is thinking about the bigger picture. He is thinking long-term. And that same philosophy that led him to leave money on the table in his playing contract is the exact same philosophy driving every financial move he makes off the court. But let's keep it completely real for a second. $39 million a year is generational wealth by any standard outside of a professional sports contract. That is not a number most people can even conceptualize in their daily lives. Spread that across 4 years and you are looking at a guaranteed $156 million from his playing deal alone, not counting endorsements, not counting business income, not counting any of the New York investments we are about to get deep into. And the context of where he came from contract-wise makes it even more significant. Before this extension, he signed his initial Knicks deal worth over $100 million across 4 years, meaning he was already getting paid serious money before he fully unlocked his superstar level. So by the time this current contract runs its course, Jalen Brunson will have earned well over $250 million in NBA salary alone across his career to that point. $250 million. And he is still in his prime with more contracts ahead of him. No cap. That foundation is what makes everything else we are about to talk about possible. But what separates Brunson from a lot of guys who make that kind of money is simple. He is not sitting on it. He is not letting it depreciate. He is deploying it directly into the city he plays in, and that is where the real conversation begins. Now let's get into the New York real estate, because this is the core of the empire and where things get genuinely eye-opening. New York City real estate is its own universe entirely. The prices per square foot in Manhattan and the premium boroughs are among the highest anywhere on the entire planet. A luxury apartment in a desirable Manhattan neighborhood can run anywhere from $5 million to well north of $20 million depending on the building, the floor, the views, and the amenities attached to it. This is not a market where casual investors dip their toes in. This is a market where serious money makes serious moves. And Jalen Brunson has been making serious moves. His primary New York residence sets the tone immediately. Brunson lives in one of Manhattan's most sought-after areas, in a luxury property that reflects both his status as the franchise centerpiece of the Knicks and his understanding that in New York, where you live is itself a statement. We are talking about a high-end residence in a full-service building, the kind of place with concierge, private amenities, security, and the kind of square footage that simply does not exist at any reasonable price point in this city unless you are operating at the very top of the income ladder. Now here's what makes his primary residence interesting beyond just the luxury factor. In New York City, if you buy right and you buy in the right neighborhood, your home is simultaneously one of your best investments. Manhattan real estate has historically appreciated at a rate that outpaces most other asset classes over long time horizons. The property Brunson lives in is not just a home, it is an asset that is growing in value while he sleeps in it. That is the New York real estate game at its finest, and he is playing it correctly. But the primary residence is just the beginning, because Brunson has not stopped at one property in this city. Reports and people close to the situation have confirmed that his New York real estate footprint extends well beyond just the place he calls home. He has been building out a portfolio of New York area properties that span different asset types in different neighborhoods, the kind of diversified approach that a serious real estate investor takes when they are thinking about long-term income generation rather than just personal living situations. Smart money in New York real estate moves through LLCs and holding structures, which is exactly how Brunson operates, meaning the full scope of his holdings is not always immediately visible in public records. But when you piece together what has been reported, what sources close to him have confirmed, and what his overall financial philosophy suggests, the picture that emerges is of a player who has treated New York City the same way he treats basketball, with preparation, with film study, with the kind of intentional decision making that produces results over time rather than just in the moment. When you factor in the appreciation on his primary residence, the income potential from investment properties, and the overall trajectory of the New York market, Brunson's real estate portfolio in this city alone likely represents tens of millions of dollars in assets beyond his playing contract. That is not a side hustle. That is a parallel business operation being run in real time while he is also being one of the most important players in the Eastern Conference. The man is genuinely moving on multiple levels at once, gang. And hit that subscribe button real quick before we keep going, because we are about to get into the cars, the jewelry, the endorsements, and everything else about how Brunson actually lives, and you do not want to miss any of it. Now let's talk about the lifestyle side of things, because this is where people always want to zoom in. Jalen Brunson is not the flashiest guy in the NBA. If you follow him on social media or watch his post-game interviews, you already notice about him. He is not pulling up to the arena in a different exotic car every week. He is not dripping in $200,000 worth of jewelry every time somebody points a camera at him. That is just not his public presentation. And honestly, that understated energy is part of what makes his actual wealth so striking when you start peeling back the layers. Because behind that low-key exterior is a man who has made some very deliberate and very expensive personal choices. Let's start with the cars, because this is usually one of the first places NBA money shows up in visible ways. Brunson's vehicle collection is not the most outlandish in the league, and that is actually consistent with his overall approach to everyday. He is not the guy accumulating 15 cars in a custom garage just for the sake of having them. But make no mistake, what he does drive reflects his position clearly. He has been seen in a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, which is one of the most prestigious SUVs available anywhere in the world, and carries a base price well above $300,000. Before you even get into customization, the Cullinan is the kind of vehicle that makes a statement without screaming for attention. It is understated luxury at the absolute highest level. The people who know, and the people who do not know just see a very clean truck rolling through Manhattan. He has also been connected to a Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon, which has become essentially standard equipment for NBA players at a certain income level, and for good reason. The G-Wagon holds its value exceptionally well, carries real presence on any street in any city, and works in basically any environment. For someone navigating New York City traffic on a daily basis while also maintaining properties and commitments across the area, having a vehicle that performs in that context matters. What is genuinely interesting about Brunson's car choices from a financial perspective is the pattern. He gravitates toward vehicles that hold value, that age with dignity, that remain desirable in the secondary market years after purchase. That is not an accident. That is the same investment-minded thinking showing up in a different category. Everything this man does seems to get filtered through a question of long-term value rather than just immediate gratification. And in a league where we have watched countless players burn through enormous fortunes with nothing lasting to show for it, that discipline is genuinely rare. Now let's get into the jewelry, because this is actually where Brunson does let himself have some real fun. If you are watching Knicks post-game pressers or caught Brunson on media days, you have noticed that he does rock some serious ice when the moment calls for it, and the watches alone tell a whole story. He has been spotted wearing a Richard Mille on multiple occasions, and if you are not familiar with the brand, understand that these are not average luxury watches by any definition. Richard Mille timepieces start at 6 figures on the low end and climb to several $1 million for the more complicated or limited production models. The brand is worn almost exclusively by elite athletes, celebrities, and high net worth individuals who want the absolute pinnacle of watchmaking craftsmanship. Brunson wearing a Richard Mille is him communicating in the quietest possible way that he has reached a certain level, and the message lands. Beyond Richard Mille, he has also been seen with pieces from Audemars Piguet, specifically from the Royal Oak collection, which has become one of the most recognizable and coveted watch lines in the entire world. AP Royal Oaks run anywhere from $30,000 on the used market to well over $100,000 for newer references or special editions. And here's what makes collecting Audemars particularly smart from a financial standpoint. These watches actually appreciate in value over time when properly maintained. You are not just buying jewelry that loses value the moment you put it on. You are buying an asset that will likely be worth more in 10 years than it is today. That is the kind of purchase that fits perfectly with the Brunson financial philosophy. His chain game is also legitimately serious. He has been seen rocking Cuban link chains and custom pendant pieces that are clearly made to order rather than pulled off a showroom floor. Custom work at that level, factoring in diamond, weight, gold value, and the craftsmanship involved, easily runs into 6 figures per piece and can climb well above that depending on the specific commission. Added all together, the Richard Mille, the Audemars, the custom chains and pendants, and you are looking at a jewelry collection that conservatively sits at $1 million plus in total value. And for someone earning at his level, that is actually restrained compared to a lot of his peers in the league. But it is real money, and it reflects someone who, when he does invest in personal luxury, chooses things that maintain their quality and their value over time. Consistent pattern, fam. Consistent pattern. Let's talk about the endorsement world now, because this is another major income layer that people do not always factor in when they are calculating what Brunson is actually worth. His signature deal with New Balance is the centerpiece here, and it deserves real attention because it is not just a shoe deal in the traditional sense. It is a legacy play. New Balance made an aggressive push into the basketball market over the last several years, and Brunson was one of their most important signings. They gave him his own signature sneaker line, a designation that used to be reserved almost exclusively for the absolute top tier of NBA superstars. Having your name on a signature shoe means royalties on every unit sold, creative involvement in the product, and a revenue stream that generates money regardless of what is happening on the court. The exact financial terms of the New Balance partnership have not been fully disclosed publicly, but industry estimates for deals at that level typically fall somewhere between $5 and $15 million per year, depending on sales volume, performance bonuses, and contractual incentives. Add the fact that his Knicks platform gives the shoe line massive visibility in the largest media market in America, a city where sneaker culture is a religion, and you start to understand why this partnership makes complete sense for both sides involved. Beyond New Balance, Brunson has cultivated additional brand partnerships and endorsement relationships that add meaningfully to his overall income picture. He has become one of the more genuinely marketable faces in the entire NBA. Not because he generates controversy or because he is the most outspoken personality in the league, but because he is reliable, he wins, and he is beloved in his market in a way that very few athletes anywhere achieve. Brands want to be associated with winners who do not bring drama. Brunson checks every single box on that list without even trying. When you add endorsement income on top of his playing salary, his realistic annual earning power is likely somewhere in the range of $45 to $55 million. That puts him comfortably among the highest earning athletes on the entire planet, not just in the NBA, the planet. And he is doing it quietly in a city that celebrates loud, which somehow makes it even more impressive. Now let's talk about his presence in New York beyond just the financial investments, because this part of the story is just as important as the real estate and the contracts. Jalen Brunson has become genuinely embedded in New York City culture in a way that very few athletes from outside the city ever actually achieve. There are usually two types of players who come to New York: the ones who treat it like a job site, who play in the city but never really become part of it, and the ones who arrive, fall in love with everything the city represents, and make it a core part of their identity. Brunson is firmly and completely in that second category. And because New York rewards authentic commitment in a way no other city does, the city has given back to him in ways that extend well beyond basketball. His influence in New York has generated business opportunities and social capital that simply would not exist anywhere else. New York is a city where everybody is working on something. Everybody is looking for the right partner. Everybody is looking for the right name to attach to the right project at the right moment. And right now, Jalen Brunson's name carries genuine weight in that city, not just among sports fans in the Garden, but among the business community, among real estate developers, among the entertainment and fashion worlds that intersect with sports in New York in a way they do not intersect anywhere else on earth. He has been involved in restaurant and hospitality ventures in the New York area. He has cultivated relationships across industries that create compounding opportunities over time. Every event he attends, every partnership he aligns himself with, every community initiative he supports in the 5 boroughs adds another thread to the web of influence he is weaving through the city. And influence in New York is not just a soft asset. It converts directly into financial opportunity for people who know how to leverage it properly. Brunson knows how to leverage it, that much is clear. Let's zoom in on the broader community angle for a second, because this is something that does not get talked about enough when people discuss Brunson's New York presence. He has been intentional about giving back to New York City in ways that go beyond the standard athlete charity playbook. He has supported youth basketball initiatives throughout the 5 boroughs, showing up not just with a check, but with actual presence and actual time. In a city that has seen countless athletes pass through without leaving any meaningful mark on the community, that kind of authentic investment registers differently with people. And here's the business reality of community investment in a city like New York. It is not charity in the one-directional sense. When you genuinely give back to a community, that community gives back to you in loyalty that translates into real economic value. The Knicks fan base treats Brunson like one of their own because he has acted like one of their own. That loyalty shows up in jersey sales, in business support, in the kind of organic marketing that no endorsement budget can manufacture. The community investment and the financial empire are not separate things. They are feeding each other. Now let's talk about what all of this adds up to from a net worth perspective, because I know that is the number everybody ultimately wants to land on. Estimating net worth is always going to be imperfect because it depends on so many variables. Market valuations on the real estate, the performance of various investments, how endorsement structures are set up, what liabilities exist against the assets. But when you add up what we know, the playing contract earnings, the endorsement income, the New York real estate portfolio across multiple properties, the jewelry and vehicle collection, the business interests and partnerships, a conservative estimate of Brunson's current net worth lands somewhere in the range of $60 to $80 million and growing. And here is the critical word, growing, because Brunson has not hit his next contract yet. When this current deal expires and he sits down for the next negotiation, if he continues performing at the level he has been performing at, the number that comes out of that conversation is going to make what he is making now look like the warm-up act. The Knicks know it. The league knows it. Brunson knows it. And every investment he is making right now is being made with the understanding that the resources available to him are going to continue expanding significantly. He is not spending as if he is already at his ceiling. He is investing as if he is still in the early chapters of a much longer story. And that patience, that discipline, that commitment to delayed gratification over immediate flex, that is the fundamental difference between athletes who end up truly wealthy and athletes who simply had money for a while before it disappeared. So let's bring this all the way home because we have covered a lot of ground, and I want to make sure we are leaving with the full picture locked in. Jalen Brunson is not just an NBA player anymore. He is a New York City institution in the making. He is an investor. He is a property owner operating across one of the most expensive and most competitive real estate markets in the world. He is a brand partner. He is a businessman. And he is doing all of it simultaneously while also being the unquestioned leader and best player on one of the most historically significant franchises in professional basketball. The New York Empire is real. Gang, the properties are real. The watches and the cars and the custom jewelry, all of it is real. But more importantly, the thinking behind all of it is real. This is a man who looked at the earning window that professional basketball provides. A window that is shorter than most people realize and closes faster than any player wants to admit, and decided he was going to use every single dollar of it as intentionally as possible. No recklessness, no waste, no chasing trends, just a clear-eyed, disciplined, long-term approach to turning athletic income into something that outlasts the game itself. And here's what is genuinely wild about the whole thing. He is still playing. He is still in his prime. He is still adding to what he has built. Still making moves, still expanding the footprint of what the Jalen Brunson brand means in this city and beyond. The story we told today is going to look completely different in 5 years because the trajectory he is on does not have a visible ceiling from where we are standing right now. Jalen Brunson came to New York to play basketball, but somewhere along the way he also decided to own a real piece of the city itself. And based on everything we have been able to put together about his financial world, New York might not have fully realized yet just how much of it he has been quietly and methodically stacking up. That is the real Jalen Brunson story. And no cap, it is just getting started. What do you think? Is Brunson the most underrated businessman in the NBA right now? Or is there someone else you think is building smarter off the court? Drop it in the comments and let the debate go. And if you are not subscribed yet, you already know what to do. Tap that button right now because we have got a lot more of these coming and you do not want to be the last one to find out what drops next. Yo, let's talk about Karl-Anthony Towns for a second because most people still think of him as just a basketball player, a big man, a center who can shoot threes. That's it. That's the box they put him in. But fam, Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't just play in New York, he owns it. We're talking about a man pulling in somewhere in the range of $40 to $50 million a year when you stack his NBA salary on top of his endorsement portfolio. And he is not letting that money sit in a bank account collecting dust. No cap, KAT has been quietly building one of the most impressive financial empires of any active NBA player, and the city of New York has become his personal playground. Real estate, luxury vehicles, jewelry that costs more than most people's homes, a lifestyle so dialed in and so unapologetically lavish that when you lay it all out piece by piece, it genuinely looks like this man made a blueprint and said, I want to own a city. And then he went and did it. By the end of this video, you're going to look at Karl-Anthony Towns completely differently. The soft big man narrative, gone. The guy who just plays basketball and goes home, done. What you're about to see is an empire built methodically, lived loudly, and financed by one of the most lucrative careers in the modern NBA. Let's get into it. Starting things off with who Karl-Anthony Towns actually is, because context matters, and if we're going to talk about this man's empire, you need to understand the foundation it was built on. KAT was born in Edison, New Jersey to a Dominican mother and an American father, and from the moment he stepped onto a basketball court, It was clear this was not a normal talent. The Kentucky product came into the NBA as a #1 overall pick in 2015, selected first by the Minnesota Timberwolves, who spent years trying to build around him before the situation eventually ran its course. He's a center who shoots like a guard, a 7-footer with a genuinely elite three-point shot, and a player who has made multiple All-Star appearances and established himself as one of the best offensive big men the sport has seen in a generation. But here's the thing about KAT's career arc that makes his current situation so interesting. The trade to the New York Knicks changed everything. Not just on the court, where he immediately elevated the Knicks into legitimate contention conversation, but off the court, where the New York platform gave his personal brand and his business interests a stage they simply didn't have in Minnesota. Because Minnesota is a basketball market, New York is a world market. And Karl-Anthony Towns understood that distinction immediately and acted on it. The numbers tell the story plainly. His current NBA contract puts him in the upper tier of player salaries in the league. We're talking north of $40 million annually from his playing deal alone. Stack on top of that his endorsement relationships, his business ventures, his appearance fees, and the various income streams that come with being a high-profile athlete in the most media-saturated sports city on the planet, and you are looking at a yearly income that most people cannot conceptualize in real terms. $40 to $50 million a year, every year. And the man is spending it strategically, intentionally, and in ways that are building long-term wealth rather than just financing short-term flex. So let's walk through what that kind of money looks like when it's deployed by someone who clearly has a plan. The real estate portfolio is where things get genuinely jaw-dropping, and this is the piece of KAT's empire that most people don't fully know about. When Karl-Anthony Towns made his move to New York, he didn't do what a lot of athletes do: sign a lease somewhere nice, find a comfortable situation, and call it settled. KAT went into the New York real estate market with intent. And if you know anything about New York real estate, you know that the barrier to entry at the level he's operating is staggering. This is one of the most expensive real estate markets on the planet. Properties in the neighborhoods where KAT has been planting his flag are the kinds of properties that generational wealth buys. We're talking about a living situation that is not just a home, it's a statement. The kind of square footage, the kind of building, the kind of amenities that come with elite Manhattan and New York area real estate at the top of the market are things that most people only see in architecture magazines or in the background of Instagram posts from people they'll never meet. KAT is living in that world daily, not just visiting it. And it doesn't stop at one property. Like any serious wealth builder, KAT's real estate footprint extends beyond his primary residence. Smart money in the athlete space has increasingly moved toward real estate as a vehicle for long-term wealth creation. It appreciates, it generates passive income, and unlike a car or a piece of jewelry, it tends to hold and grow value over time. KAT has shown the financial awareness to understand that principle and act on it. The empire isn't just his home, its properties, its investments, its square footage in one of the world's most competitive real estate environments. When you're talking about owning a piece of New York, actually owning it, not renting it, not passing through it, you're talking about a level of financial commitment that separates the athletes who build wealth from the ones who spend it. KAT is clearly in the building column, but let's be real, the real estate is impressive, but the car collection is what KAT lets his personality show. And this man has taste, gang. Serious, uncompromising, no corners cut taste. The garage situation at Karl-Anthony Towns' residence is the kind of thing that car culture people talk about in reverent tones. We're not discussing one or two nice vehicles here. We're talking about a curated collection of machines that represent some of the most coveted names in the automotive world. The Lamborghini presence is confirmed, and it is gorgeous. The kind of exotic Italian machinery that turns every street in New York into a runway. The kind of car that doesn't just get you somewhere but makes a declaration about who you are every time you pull up. In a city where people are perpetually unimpressed by wealth, where you see everything and nothing surprises you, pulling up in a Lambo still turns heads, still stops conversations. KAT knows this. But the collection isn't just about flash. There's range here. Custom Rolls Royce, high-end Range Rovers for when the energy calls for something different. The kind of vehicular variety that tells you this isn't someone who just bought one expensive car because they could. This is someone who genuinely appreciates automotive culture and has assembled a collection that reflects different moods, different contexts, different statements. Every car in that garage has a reason to be there. In New York specifically, where most people don't even own cars because parking alone is a financial commitment, having a collection of that caliber is its own kind of power move. It says, I don't just live here, I moved to the city on my own terms. The streets of New York are KAT's driveway, for real. Now let's talk about the jewelry, because Karl Anthony Towns' jewelry game is a whole conversation by itself, and honestly it deserves the time. The watch collection alone is enough to retire on. We're talking Patek Philippe, Richard Mille, Audemars Piguet, the names that even people who don't know watches know represent the absolute pinnacle of what horology has to offer. A single Richard Mille in the colorways and complications that KAT has been spotted wearing can run anywhere from $300,000 to over $1 million. These are not accessories, these are investments. These are wearable assets that in many cases appreciate over time, that have waiting lists measured in years, that the majority of the world's wealthy population cannot access regardless of how much money they have. The chain situation is equally serious. Custom pieces, diamond set pendants, the kind of work that comes from jewelers whose client list reads like a who's who of the entertainment and sports world. KAT has been photographed in pieces that represent hundreds of thousands of dollars of craftsmanship sitting on his neck like it's casual. And the thing about the way he wears it, it never looks desperate. It never looks like he's trying to prove something. It looks like a man who has earned the right to wear beautiful things and is completely comfortable doing so. There's something about an athlete who wears jewelry with that kind of ease that communicates a specific relationship with wealth. It's not no money anxiety. It's not look at me insecurity. KAT moves to his jewelry the way someone moves to a wardrobe they've had for years. Naturally, confidently, with genuine appreciation for what he has. You could just see how settled he is in it. That's a different energy than what you see from a lot of guys in his position. The total jewelry valuation across what's been documented and photographed puts him in a tier that very few active NBA players occupy. We're talking about a man whose wrist alone is worth more than most people will earn in a decade. No cap. But fam, an empire is more than possessions. It's more than cars and houses and chains. What really sets KAT's situation apart from just a wealthy athlete living large is the lifestyle infrastructure he has built around himself in New York. The way he actually lives day to day, the experiences he curates, the world he has created in the most competitive city on earth. New York rewards a very specific kind of ambition. The city has no patience for people who are just passing through, who haven't committed to understanding what it is and what it requires. The athletes and entertainers who truly thrive in New York, not just survive it, not just playing it, but actually build lives there that reflect the city's energy, are the ones who go all in. And Cat has gone all in. According to the people around him and the social media presence he's built, the KAT lifestyle in New York operates at a level that blends elite athlete recovery and preparation with genuinely world-class living. The restaurants he frequents are the kinds of places where you can't just call and get a table, where knowing the right people is the cost of entry. The social circles he moves through in New York include not just athletes but entertainers, business figures, fashion people, the full ecosystem of New York's elite cultural world. When you're KAT in New York, you're not just an NBA player at a dinner, you're a presence, a recognizable face, a node in the network of people who collectively influence how the city moves culturally and economically. The fashion dimension of his lifestyle deserves attention too. KAT has developed a genuinely personal relationship with high fashion that goes beyond the typical athlete putting on expensive clothes narrative. We're talking about engagement with the fashion world at a level where designers notice, where style publications feature him, where his off-court looks are analyzed and discussed the same way his on-court game is. Custom pieces front row at shows, the kind of fashion credibility that you can't buy, you have to earn it through genuine interest and authentic taste. KAT has that. And hit that subscribe button right quick before we keep going, because we still need to talk about Cat's business ventures, the full scope of his brand, and the moments where his New York empire intersects with some things that have people in the basketball world talking. Now let's move into the business side of things, because this is where the real empire building happens and where KAT separates himself from athletes who are just wealthy and athletes who are building something that will outlast their playing days. The endorsement portfolio is substantial and growing. Nike has been a long-standing relationship, the kind of brand alignment that both generates significant income and provides a global marketing platform that amplifies everything else KAT is doing commercially. When you are a Nike athlete at the level KAT operates, you are not just wearing their shoes. You are part of their storytelling apparatus, their global brand communications, their vision of what basketball and athlete culture look like. That relationship has financial value well into the multiple millions annually, but its brand value is arguably even larger. Beyond Nike, KAT has been strategic about the other brand relationships he cultivates. The pattern you see with athletes who build lasting commercial empires is selectivity. They don't say yes to everything. They curate their endorsement portfolio the way they curate any collection, choosing partners whose identity aligns with the image they're building and the audience they're speaking to. KT has demonstrated that selectivity. The brands in his portfolio feel coherent. They feel chosen rather than accepted. The investment activity is where it gets really interesting, because Cat has shown an appetite for putting his capital to work in ways that go beyond passive wealth management. There's been documented involvement in business ventures that span multiple industries, the kind of portfolio diversification that financial advisors preach to athletes who want to protect and grow wealth across a career and beyond. Tech investments, lifestyle brands, the kinds of opportunities that come to athletes at his level, and that smart money captures while the less financially aware let pass. What really got people paying attention was the strategic way KAT has approached his New York brand specifically. The city gives him access to deal flow and business relationships that simply don't exist in smaller markets. New York is where capital meets culture meets commerce at the highest level. And KAT has been leveraging that access deliberately. The connections made in New York social circles, the relationships built across industries, the visibility that comes with being a high-profile Knick in a media market that produces more content and more coverage than anywhere else in the sport. All of that feeds back into the commercial machine and compounds it over time. Y'all think KAT just woke up with an empire? Nah. Let's talk about the journey that made all of this possible, because the empire has a story behind it, and that story matters. Karl Anthony Towns has navigated some genuinely difficult chapters in his personal life with a grace and resilience that earned him respect far beyond the basketball world. The loss of his mother to COVID-19 in 2020 was a public tragedy that Cat shared with heartbreaking honesty, and the way he honored her memory and continued to pursue excellence in her name reveals something about his character that no amount of highlights or box scores could. This is a man who has felt real loss, who has carried real grief, and who has channeled it into motivation rather than letting it become a ceiling. That personal foundation, that understanding of what actually matters, grounded in real experience, shows up in how he moves through the wealth and the empire. There's a purposefulness to it. The investment decisions aren't impulsive. The business relationships aren't casual. The life he's built in New York isn't just about consumption. It's about creation, about building something that reflects where he came from and where he intends to go. The Dominican heritage that his mother represented is present in everything KAT does, publicly. He has been vocal about that identity, has used his platform to celebrate it, and has made clear that his success is not just personal but communal, that it belongs in some way to the culture and the family that shaped him. In New York, a city with one of the largest and most vibrant Dominican communities in the world, that identity resonates powerfully and authentically. It's not a marketing strategy, it's who he is. And that authenticity is part of what makes the empire feel different from the standard athlete wealth narrative. This isn't a guy who got rich and lost the plot. This is a man who got rich and stayed grounded in what made him, who used his wealth as a vehicle for building rather than just having. That's a distinction that matters, and is one that the people around him in New York recognize. Let's come back to the lifestyle for a second, because there are layers here that we haven't fully explored yet, and some of them are genuinely wild. The hospitality scene in New York is an industry unto itself, and KAT participates in it at the highest level. We're talking about private events, exclusive dining experiences, the kinds of tables and rooms and gatherings that exist entirely outside of public visibility. The New York elite social calendar runs parallel to the public face's city. There are events happening in this city every single week that never make Instagram. that never get written about that the average New Yorker has no idea exists. And at KAT's level, you're getting invitations to all of it. The social media window he does give us shows enough to understand the scale, the travel, because even when you own a city, you leave it sometimes. It's first class in every sense of the phrase. Private or premium everything. Destinations that reflect someone who experiences the world rather than just passing through it. The kind of vacations that reset your understanding of what a vacation is. The fitness and recovery infrastructure that surrounds an elite NBA player at his level is also worth noting as part of the lifestyle picture. This is not a gym membership and a decent diet situation. We're talking about personal trainers, private facilities, cutting-edge recovery technology, nutritionists, the full apparatus of elite athletic preparation. In New York, KAT has access to the best of all of it because the best of everything exists in New York, and at his income level, accessing it is simply a phone call. Where you layer all of this together, the real estate, the cars, the jewelry, the business portfolio, the social access, the travel, the recovery setup, the fashion presence, what emerges is not just a rich person living well. What emerges is a comprehensive, intentional, coherently designed life. An empire isn't just assets. It's an entire architecture of how you move through the world. And KAT's architecture in New York is something to behold. Now, the Knicks factor in all of this is something we be leaving money on the table by not discussing, because the franchise and the city have amplified KAT's empire in ways that are hard to fully quantify, but impossible to ignore. The New York Knicks are one of the most storied franchises in professional basketball history, and they are also one of the most commercially powerful. Madison Square Garden is the world's most famous arena. The Knicks media market dwarfs every other team in the league. When you are a star player for the New York Knicks, your visibility operates at a completely different level than it would for the same player on almost any other team. For KAT specifically, the Knicks platform has been transformative. The business conversations that open up when you're a recognizable face at MSG, the media appearances, the brand activations, the event invitations that come specifically because you wear a Knicks jersey, the city's appetite for investing in its own athletes, and supporting their businesses and amplifying their brands and incorporating them into the cultural fabric of New York is something that has no equivalent elsewhere in the NBA landscape. New York City decides who it embraces, and it doesn't embrace everybody. The athletes who come here and try to coast on their national profile without genuinely engaging with the city find out quickly that New York doesn't care about your reputation anywhere else. But the ones who show up fully, who engage authentically, who bring their real selves to the city and let the city into their world, those players get adopted in a way that generates enormous commercial and cultural returns. KAT got adopted, the city embraced him, and the empire reflects that embrace in its structure and its scale. Let's talk about the community piece too, because this is part of the KAT story that doesn't always get enough run. For real though, the wealth KAT has accumulated is impressive on its own terms, but the way he has used it to give back and invest in communities around him adds a dimension to the empire that goes beyond the material. His philanthropic activity, particularly in areas connected to his mother's legacy in her battle with COVID-19, has been substantial and genuine. We're not talking about a foundation that exists on paper and writes a check once a year. We're talking about active engagement, public advocacy, and financial commitment to causes that matter to him personally. In New York, the philanthropic landscape is as competitive and high profile as everything else. Major donors are recognized, their causes get visibility, their contributions shape institutions. KAT's charitable footprint in New York is growing alongside his commercial one, and the combination of wealth creation and community investment is exactly the blueprint that athletes who want to build lasting legacies pursue. The Dominican community in New York, in particular, has been a beneficiary of KAT's platform and his willingness to use it for advocacy and representation. Being one of the highest paid Dominican athletes in the world, in a city with the largest Dominican diaspora outside of the Dominican Republic itself, that is a powerful intersection, and KAT has not taken it for granted. The community sees him, and he sees the community back. That reciprocity is part of what makes the empire feel rooted rather than floating. So where does all of this leave us when we step back and look at the full picture? Karl Anthony Towns came to New York as a basketball player and has become something considerably larger than that. The income, 40 to 50 million a year and growing, provided the raw material, but the empire he has built with that material reflects something that money alone cannot buy. vision, intentionality, and a genuine understanding of what New York requires and rewards. The real estate portfolio is establishing generational wealth in one of the world's most valuable property markets. The car collection is a curated expression of taste and personality that moves through the city like a statement. The jewelry, the watches, the chains, the custom pieces represents both investment and artistry, worn by a man who is genuinely comfortable in the skin of someone who has earned it. The business ventures and endorsements are building commercial infrastructure that will outlast his playing career. And the lifestyle, the restaurants, the fashion, the social access, the New Yorkness of all of it is what an empire actually looks like when someone is living inside it rather than just looking at it from the outside. You know what's wild, fam? Most people watching KAT play basketball on a Tuesday night at the Garden have no idea about the depth of what he's built off the court. They see the big man making threes, making the Knicks competitive, filling his role in the basketball narrative, and that's fine. The basketball is real and it matters, but the full story of Karl-Anthony Towns is so much bigger than the box score. This is a man who looked at New York City, the most competitive, most expensive, most unforgiving real estate and cultural market in the world, and decided he wasn't going to rent a place in it. He was going to own it. Piece by piece, investment by investment, relationship by relationship, neighborhood by neighborhood. And from everything we can see looking at the full scope of what he's built, he's well on his way. KAT doesn't just play in New York, he owns New York. And the city for one seems completely fine with that. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What part of KAT's empire surprised you the most? And if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you lock in now because we got more breakdowns on athletes who are building real wealth coming very soon. You don't want to miss what's next. What if I told you there's a guy right now today quietly sitting in a city most people forget exists, pulling in $71 million a season? Not LeBron City, not New York, not LA, a place called Oklahoma. And this dude, he didn't just move there, he didn't just play there, he took over, built something so massive that people in that state don't even call him a basketball player anymore. They call him something else entirely. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why. Let's get into it. Before we get to the big crazy numbers and the mansions and all of that, I need y'all to understand where this man came from, because the origin story is genuinely one of the most important parts of this whole thing. It makes everything that comes after hit even harder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, full name Shavonte Aishan Gilgeous-Alexander, but we just call him SGA, was born on July 12, 1998 in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Now, if you don't know Hamilton, it's a city about an hour outside of Toronto. Not exactly the basketball capital of the world, but here's what's crazy about SGA's background. This dude comes from an Atiethek family. His mother, Charmaine Gilgeous, is not just some random parent who drove him to practice. She is a former Olympic athlete. She represented Antigua and Barbuda as a sprinter at the 1992 Summer Olympics in Barcelona. The Olympics. So the athletic genes, they are real. They were built into this dude from day one. You cannot make this stuff up. His mom ran on the world's biggest stage, and now her son is running the biggest stage in basketball. That lineage is not a coincidence. Now growing up in Hamilton, Shai started developing his game on the court, and his mom, being the Olympian she is, she was not playing around when it came to pushing him to maximize his potential. She saw something in this kid and she made sure that potential did not go to waste. Because when you come from an Olympic athlete, the standard in your household is not pretty good. The standard is excellence every single day, no shortcuts. And SGA absorbed every bit of that. So at just 15 years old, Shai made a massive decision. He left Canada, he relocated to the United States, specifically to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to play for Hamilton Heights Christian Academy. 15 years old, moving to another country alone, away from his family, away from everything he knew, to go put in work in an unfamiliar place because he believed in what he was building. That is a level of commitment and sacrifice that most grown adults will never understand. But that decision, that one move at age 15, it changed his life forever. Because at Hamilton Heights, college recruiters started paying attention. And eventually the biggest call came, Kentucky. John Calipari and the Kentucky Wildcats offered, and Shai said yes. He went to Lexington for one season and played for the Wildcats. And here is a detail I love about this story. He didn't even start immediately. He came off the bench for the first 6 games. 6 games. The man who was now the best player in the NBA was coming off somebody else's bench at the start of his college career. And then he became the starter and never looked back, leading Kentucky all the way to the NCAA tournament and establishing himself as a legitimate first-round talent. After just 1 season at Kentucky, Shai declared for the 2018 NBA draft. One and done. His senior year in high school, he was averaging 18.4 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. The draft came and the Charlotte Hornets selected him 11th overall. But here's the wild part. The same night he gets drafted, he gets traded to the Los Angeles Clippers before he ever puts on a Hornets jersey. So he goes to LA, plays his rookie season, averages 10.8 points per game over a 482 game schedule, makes the all-rookie team, and shows flashes of what's coming. But nobody outside of basketball circles really noticed yet. And then came the EA trade, the trade that changed everything. The Clippers decided they needed Paul George. To get Paul George, they put together one of the most lopsided trade packages in NBA history. They sent Oklahoma City SGA, Danilo Gallinari, and 5 first-round draft picks plus 4 first-round pick swaps. Oklahoma City basically robbed them blind in broad daylight. They got SGA and a decade's worth of future draft ammunition. And Paul George eventually left the Clippers anyway and signed with Philly, so the Clippers gave up all of that for absolutely nothing in the long run. And SGA, he got sent to a small market team in rebuild mode that nobody was taking seriously. Y'all want to know what he said about that trade years later? He said, "I'd say it worked out in my favor. No cap, that might be the most cold-blooded, calm, perfectly understated response to becoming the greatest player in the league. It worked out in my favor." Bro is a poet. So here's where the story really picks up speed, gang, because SGA doesn't arrive in Oklahoma City and immediately become a superstar. That is not how this story goes. He arrives in OKC and he just works. Season after season, he adds layer after layer to his game. More efficiency, better pace control, sharper mid-range touch, elite late game composure, defensive intensity. He went from promising young guard to franchise cornerstone to full-blown elite superstar. And he did it so patiently, so steadily, that by the time the world fully woke up to what was happening in Oklahoma City, it was already too late to slow him down. During the 2023-24 season, he averaged 30.1 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6.2 assists, and 2 steals per game in 75 games. 2 steals a game. Chat, this is not just a scorer. This man is locking people up on the defensive end too. He's a two-way monster. And then the 2024-25 season came, and oh my God, that is when the entire world sat up and realized what Oklahoma City had been quietly building. He averaged 32.7 points per game. That's the NBA scoring title. The whole league led every single player in the association in scoring. And on top of that, he's putting up 5 rebounds, 6.4 assists, and shooting over 51.9% from the field. Over 50%. From a guard who is taking some of the most difficult mid-range and floater attempts you'll ever see, and shooting 37.5% from 3. This is an elite, complete offensive package from a player who can also guard you. But none of it matters if you can't win when it counts. In the playoffs, SGA went nuclear. He dropped 34 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists in the closeout win over the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. This man is built for the big moment. He's different in the clutch, colder, more precise, more dangerous. And when the finals arrived, he delivered the championship. Oklahoma City won their first NBA championship in franchise history. And SGA didn't just win a ring, he won the regular season MVP and the finals MVP in the same year. Only 11 players in NBA history have done that. 11 out of literally thousands of players who have ever played in this league across decades and decades of NBA history. Kareem, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Allen Iverson, Steph Curry, and now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That is the company he is in right now. And the old heads, they are shook. Gilbert Arenas went on a show with Kenya Martin to talk about SGA and said flat out, he hasn't hit his prime yet at 26. Coming off a championship season, coming off winning literally every award available to him. The legends of the game are saying the best version of this man has not even shown up yet. Y'all seeing this? Because this is getting genuinely scary to think about. If 32.7 points per game and an MVP and a finals MVP is not his peak, What does the peak look like? I'm not even ready. Okay, so this is the section I know y'all have been waiting for. Let's talk about the money. And I mean really, truly, break every number down, talk about it. Because the figures here are so enormous, they almost don't feel real when you say them out loud. So get this. Back in 2021, SGA signed a 5-year, $179 million deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder, which, okay, that is already an absolutely life-changing, generational wealth, never work a day in your life again type of number. That contract alone would make most people's great-great-grandchildren set for life. But that was just the beginning, because then SGA goes and has the greatest season of his career, wins MVP, wins Finals MVP, wins the championship, and Oklahoma City comes running back to the table. In July 2025, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander signed a 4-year, $285 million Supermax extension with the Thunder. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back. 4 years, $285 million. That is, without any exaggeration, the richest 4-year contract in NBA history. More than anyone has ever been paid over a 4-year span since the league has existed. And once it fully kicks in during the 2027 season, SGA will be earning $71.25 million per season. Now let's do the math together, because I genuinely love breaking this down. $71.25 million a year. Divide that by 12 months and you get approximately $5.9 million a month. Divide by 52 weeks and you're looking at $1.37 million a week. Break it down to days. That is roughly $196,000 a day, every single day. Whether he's balling in the playoffs or on vacation in Europe or sitting at home watching TV with his son eating cereal. Every day that money accumulates. Almost $200,000 a day for playing basketball. For a 26-year-old from Hamilton, Ontario, what the? Bro, that is actually insane. I don't care how many times you hear it, that number never gets normal. But here is the part of this contract story that I love even more than the dollar amount itself. And this is where SGA shows you that the basketball IQ and the business IQ are operating at the same elite level. You know how most athletes have agents who negotiate their deals? Standard practice in professional sports. You hire an agent, they handle the negotiations, they take a percentage, usually around 3 to 4% off the top of whatever they get you. That's just how it works for almost every single player in the league. Well, SGA said no. He parted ways with his longtime agent, Thad Foucher, looked at himself in the mirror and said, I can do this myself. And he walked directly into the Oklahoma City Thunder's front office and negotiated the biggest 4-year deal in NBA history. BY himself. No agent, no middleman, no representative, just Shai, the Thunder's front office, a conference table, and a number that ended at $285 million. And by cutting out the agent entirely, he saved himself an estimated $11 million in fees. $11 million. Just kept it. $11 million that went directly into his pocket instead of someone else's. At 26 years old, this is not just a basketball player game. This is a chess player. This is a man who reads the board multiple moves ahead and does not leave a single dollar on the table. And the fact that he trusted himself to go in there and get that deal done and got it done successfully, that tells you everything about how SGA operates as a human being. Confident, prepared, in control, always. Alright, so we've talked about the $71 million per year basketball salary. But here's the thing, gang. That is just the starting point for SGA's income. Because on top of the contract, this man is pulling in approximately $18 million a year just from endorsement deals. $18 million. Extra money on top of the already enormous salary. So when you combine everything, we are talking about approximately $90 million coming in per year. From a dude who's 26? From a dude who grew up in Hamilton, Ontario? No cap, that's actually crazy. Let me walk you through the endorsement portfolio because it's genuinely impressive and it shows how diverse and smart his brand positioning is. First and most importantly, Converse. And this is not some regular shoe deal where a brand throws money at a player, slaps their name on a sneaker design someone else made and calls it a day. Not even close. In 2024, SGA signed a multi-year extension with Converse, which is owned by Nike, worth approximately $15 million per season. $15 million a year just from one shoe brand. But the money isn't even the most impressive part. The title they gave him is, he is the creative director of basketball for Converse. That is a title that has never existed before. Converse created it specifically for Shai because they recognize that he has a genuine creative vision that goes beyond just wearing shoes. This means SGA has real actual authority over design decisions. He is sitting in design meetings, he is making calls on what gets made. He helped design his own logo and led the creation of his first signature shoe, the Shai 001, which dropped in February 2025 and has sneakerheads going absolutely wild. His own shoe, his own logo that HE designed. At 26, that is LeBron territory. That is Kobe territory. That is a legacy building move that most NBA players never even come close to reaching in their entire career. Beyond Converse, he's got to deal with AT&T, one of the biggest telecommunications companies in the country. He's partnered with Canada Goose, the luxury winter jacket brand where a single jacket costs $1,500, and people still buy them because of how prestigious the brand is. He's with Skims, Kim Kardashian's shapewear and lifestyle brand that has been absolutely everywhere in culture over the last few years. He shows up in sponsored content on Instagram, where he has over 4 million followers growing by the day, and every post is an event because even his Instagram is curated and intentional. But the reach goes way beyond NBA circles now. In early 2026, Shai headlined the Levi's campaign. Cool, right? But here's the thing that makes it insane. That campaign debuted during the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, not an NBA marketing event, not an All-Star Weekend activation, the most watched television broadcast in America, where brands paid millions of dollars for 30 seconds of airtime, and Levi's used that moment to debut a campaign starring an NBA point guard from Oklahoma City. That is how big his cultural footprint has become. He's not just an NBA celebrity. He's a full mainstream icon crossing over into every corner of pop culture. And then, luxury Swiss watchmaker Audemars Piguet officially welcomed SGA into their prestigious AP family. If you're not familiar with Audemars Piguet, let me paint the picture. This is one of the most exclusive, most prestigious watch brands on the entire planet. These are watches that start at $30,000 and can go to $500,000 or more for rare pieces. This is not a brand that works with just anybody. They are incredibly selective about who they align themselves with because the association has to mean something. And they chose Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because at this point, this man's brand, his taste, his cultural status, it belongs at every table and every room in the world. The AP family, the fashion weeks, the Super Bowl campaigns, the signature shoes. Y'all seeing this? The endorsement empire is only getting bigger. Alright gang, now we get to the actual physical empire part of this video. Because SGA did not become rich and famous and then do what a lot of athletes do, pack up and move to Los Angeles or Miami or New York where the lifestyle was flashier and more visible. No, he stayed in Oklahoma City. He committed to OKC fully and completely. He planted his flag in the soil of that state and he started building. And the first thing you build when hundreds of millions of dollars are coming in? A home that matches your level. His main residence is located in the Stone Mill community of Nichols Hills, which is the most exclusive, most prestigious neighborhood in all of Oklahoma. The kind of place where old money and new money both end up. The address is 12101 Stone Mill Manor Court, Oklahoma City. He paid approximately $3.9 million for this property. And let me describe this place in detail because wow, just wow. The house is built in the French country style. That means we're talking about the sophisticated, elegant, old European aesthetic, stone details, architectural character, beautiful proportions, but with every modern luxury amenity you would expect from an NBA superstar in 2025. The square footage lands somewhere between 7,000 and 8,500 square feet. That is so much space that most people will never fully understand the scale of it. 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. This man has more bathrooms than most families have rooms in their entire house. And it all sits on a full acre of land, a private acre right in the middle of Oklahoma City. Let me get into the actual features now because this is where the resort comparison really kicks in. The master suite is described as the absolute highlight of the entire home. Huge, well-designed luxury finishes throughout. There's a home theater with a top-of-the-range surround sound system that SGA reportedly uses for both film study on opponents and late-night movie nights with the family. Smart lighting throughout the entire property that shifts the mood of any room instantly with a touch. A wet bar, full wine storage, a 3-car garage, and then the outdoor space. Oh my God, the backyard is straight up a resort. The centerpiece is a resort-style swimming pool with beautiful light stone coping and a massive deck. Sliding glass doors connect the inside of the house seamlessly to the outdoor area, so you can go from the living room to poolside in seconds. And then all around the property, mature trees and tall cypress hedges creating a wall of total privacy. You cannot see into this property from the street or from any neighboring house. It is a completely private world. A personal sanctuary, lush professional landscaping covering every inch of the 1-acre lot. SGA built a 5-star resort lifestyle inside a private residential neighborhood in Oklahoma City. That is the level. And one interesting note, on October 30th, 2025, the Nichols Hills property was broken into, which is obviously a serious situation. But the way it was described afterward, SGA handled it with total composure, no drama, no public outbursts, just quiet, purposeful resolution, because this is not a man who loses himself in difficult moments. On or off the court, SGA is always in control. But here's the thing that really drives the Empire point home. The Oklahoma mansion is not his only property. Because SGA has not forgotten where he came from. He is a proud Canadian. And he also owns a $6.1 million 6-bedroom mansion near Toronto, Ontario, back home, where he grew up, where he met Haley, where it all started. So this man has luxury estates in 2 countries, a $3.9 million mansion in Oklahoma, a $6.1 million mansion in Canada. At 26 years old, the empire stretches across borders. So you've got the $3.9 million OKC mansion, you've got the $6.1 million Toronto estate, you got $90 million a year coming in between salary and endorsements. You already know what kind of cars this man is driving. Let's get into it. SGA's collection features a Mercedes-AMG G63, the legendary G-Wagon in its most powerful, most aggressive configuration. Twin turbocharged V8 engine, 577 horsepower. That big, squared-off commanding presence that makes every head turn on every street you drive it down. Valued at around $183,000. This is the car of choice for superstars across every industry, music, sports, entertainment, because it's just on a different level visually and mechanically. He also owns a Tesla Cybertruck, the all-electric, angular, futuristic machine that looks like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie. Bold, unconventional, exactly the kind of choice you'd expect from someone with SGA's taste and his willingness to do things differently from the crowd. And on top of those, he rolls a limited edition Mercedes as well, giving him multiple 6-figure vehicles sitting in that 3-car garage back in Nichols Hills. This man could drive a different luxury car every single day for multiple days in a row without repeating. The collection matches the lifestyle. The collection matches the level. Everything is coordinated and intentional, just like everything else SGA does. Okay, I need y'all to understand something right now. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not just one of the greatest basketball players in the world. He is genuinely, legitimately, without any exaggeration, one of the most interesting and culturally influential style figures in all of professional sport. Full stop. Period. End of sentence. This is not an opinion. This is something the industry has confirmed over and over again. And I'm not just saying that because of what I think. Listen to what Tyrese Halliburton, who literally went up against SGA in the NBA Finals this year as his direct rival on the opposite team, said about SGA's fashion. He said Shai's been doing this since he came to the league. He is kind of like the undisputed king of NBA fashion, the undisputed king. That's one of his biggest competitors, one of the best players on the other team in the finals, and even he is giving SGA his flowers when it comes to style. That's not just respect, that's acknowledgement. The whole NBA world sees it. So what exactly makes SGA's fashion so different and so compelling? Because it would be lazy to just say, oh, he wears expensive designer clothes and leave it there. Every rich athlete can buy expensive clothes. That's not the thing. The THDA has a genuine, original, internally consistent fashion vision that comes across in everything he wears. Fashion experts have described his style as someone who gravitates toward boxier, crop silhouettes, loose baggy denim, and a deep love for mixing eras in ways most people would be afraid to try. He'll wear a vintage John Lennon shirt from decades ago alongside something completely modern and make it look completely intentional. He'll show up to a game in an Imran Potato X Louis Vuitton pattern suit with Off-White X Air Force One Complex Con exclusive sneakers, taking a bold risk with pattern and look like he was born to wear it. He rocks Balenciaga, Prada, Tom Brown, Canada Goose, and his own Converse Shy 001 with equal confidence and ease. He showed up to the 2023 Met Gala, fashion's biggest, most prestigious night of the entire year, in custom Tom Brown, and landed on nearly every single major best dressed list from that event. Not best dressed NBA player, not best dressed athlete, just best dressed, period. Among all the fashion designers and celebrities and editors and icons who attend that event every year, SGA walked in wearing basketball shorts metaphorically and walked out as a fashion figure. He's attended Paris Fashion Week not as a spectator or a guest who got invited because he's famous, as someone the fashion world actually wants to be around because his presence elevates the cultural conversation in the room. He's been connecting with sports stars from other worlds, like Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. and Eder Militão during European trips and back-to-back summers, building relationships across industries the way a true global star does. And the tunnel walks before OKC home games have literally become appointment viewing. People genuinely tune into the arena cam footage just to see what SGA is wearing. One fashion expert put it perfectly when they said his fashion is an extension of the way he played. His game is all about pace, balance, deception, confidence, and knowing exactly who he is. His wardrobe moves the exact same way. He said it himself. He wants to be just as confident off the court as he is on it. And that self-assurance, that total certainty about who you are, is what makes his fits feel different. They don't just say, I'm stylish. They say, I'm in control. And that is why the tunnel walk has become an event. OKC had this energy before. Russell Westbrook used to rock the Paycom Center tunnel in COUI crewnecks, Saint Laurent boots, and custom avant-garde pieces that nobody else would dare attempt. Russ was a fashion legend in his own right, and now SGA has carried that tradition forward and then some. He's made a small market city in the middle of America into one of the most talked about fashion destinations in the NBA. Even Tyrese Halliburton acknowledged it, saying OKC is definitely one of everybody's favorite tunnels. A small market city, a fashion destination because of one man, that is the SGA effect. And with his Converse creative director role, his Audemars Piguet Association, his Super Bowl Levi's campaign, and his growing presence at fashion weeks, the fashion industry has fully confirmed what everyone watching the tunnel already knew. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not a basketball player who likes fashion. He is a fashion figure who also happens to be the best basketball player in the world. Now look, gang, I know we've been going crazy with the numbers and the mansions and the fashion and all of that incredible stuff, and every single bit of it is real and deserved. But I want to take a moment here and talk about what I personally think is actually the most important part of the entire SGA story. Because under all of it, under the $285 million contract and the championship ring in the Nichols Hills mansion and the Paris Fashion Week appearances, there is a family, a real family. And the story of how that family came together is genuinely one of the most beautiful parts of who Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is as a human being. So let's go back to Hamilton, Ontario, the city where SGA was born and raised, and where he met a girl named Haley Summers. Haley was born on October 22nd, 1999, also in Hamilton, same city, different school. They met in 2017 through mutual friends when Shai was still just a teenager, still just a kid who was starting to dream about a basketball future that wasn't guaranteed yet, and they fell for each other. And here is what makes that hit different. Haley was not somebody who came around because of the fame or the NBA contract or the celebrity. She was there from the jump. Before Kentucky, before the draft, before the Clippers, before Oklahoma City, before any of this even existed, Haley Summers was by his side. She chose Shai Gilgeous-Alexander the person, not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the superstar. That's rare. That's real. And what was Haley doing while Shai was building his basketball career? She was building her own athletic career. Haley played NCAA Division I soccer at the University at Albany from 2017 to 2021 as a defender. She was team captain for at least 2 seasons. She helped lead her team to the 2018 America East Championship, their 3rd title in 4 years. This woman has her own competitive fire, her own achievements, her own story. She's not defined by being SGA's wife. She came in as an accomplished athlete in her own right, and that shared competitive background, both of them knowing what it takes to be great at something, is part of what makes them work. They dated for 6 years. 6 years of growing up together through every chapter: the college season, the draft night, the trade to OKC, the slow build to stardom, all of it. Shai proposed in June 2023, and then on Valentine's Day 2024, February 14th, they got married. The ceremony was intimate, not some massive celebrity production. Polaroid photos from the day surfaced on Shai's Instagram showing pink roses and a simple handwritten sign that just said, "Just married, Shai and Haley." No drama, no spectacle, just love, just real life. And then on April 25th, 2024, they welcomed their first child, a son named Aries Alexander. And I need y'all to see the full picture of who Shai is as a family man, because this is where everything comes together. When he won the MVP award in May 2025 and got up to give his speech, he thanked his teammates, his coaches, his family, and then he got to Haley and he started to say her name and he could not finish the sentence. He broke down. The man who shoots free throws in 4th quarter playoff games like he's in an empty gym, completely cold, completely calm, completely in control under the most pressure, started crying in front of everyone because of his love for his wife. He wiped his eyes, collected himself and said, "Haley Summers, thank you for everything you are, for me, for our son Aries. You were the first person to show me what love really meant, what sacrifice really meant. And then, to close it out, I wouldn't be the player I am, I wouldn't be the father I am without you." Bro, that is the whole story right there in one moment. Under everything, under the empire and the money and the fame, is just a man from Hamilton who loves his high school sweetheart and his baby son. Aries in a Yankees jacket on an Instagram story before a big game. Shai carrying his son on his arm after closeout victories. That's the real empire. That's the foundation everything else is built on. Alright gang, we are in the final stretch now. Last section, but I promise you this is worth staying for, because this is where we zoom out and look at the full picture of what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is actually building. And when you see it laid out all at once, it is absolutely staggering. Let's just list the accolades real quick because I need y'all to see this written out. NBA champion, regular season MVP, finals MVP, NBA scoring title, multiple All-Star selections, multiple All-NBA first team selections, cover athlete for NBA 2K26, Sports Illustrated 2025 Sports Person of the Year, first signature shoe with Converse, negotiated the largest 4-year contract in league history by himself, named to the AP family by Audemars Piguet, 2 countries, 2 mansions, and now back-to-back MVPs with the 2025-26 award already in his hands and the Thunder already rolling toward another deep playoff run. Sports Illustrated named him the 2025 Sports Person of the Year, the first NBA player to receive that honor since Steph Curry in 2022. And then came the comparison that put everything in perspective for Canadian sports history. SGA is the first Canadian to win Sports Person of the Year outright since Wayne Gretzky, ETAD, a great one, the most decorated hockey player in the history of the sport, a Canadian legend. And now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is in that conversation for Canadian sports legacy. Let that sit for a second. That is the tier this man has reached. And here's the scariest part of all. Remember what Gilbert Arenas said, that SGA hasn't hit his prime yet at 26 years old. Coming off a championship, coming off back-to-back MVPs, the basketball legends believe the absolute best basketball is still ahead of him. Can you imagine what this looks like at 28, at 30? What Oklahoma City looks like in 5 years with SGA locked in through 2031 on the richest deal ever signed, because that's the other thing that separates this story from so many other superstar stories. SGA is not leaving, he's not restless, he is not looking for a bigger market or a more famous city. He chose Oklahoma City and he is all in. He bought a $3.9 million mansion there. He's raising Aries there. He negotiated his own contract to stay there. He has chosen this city the same way this city chose him. And that loyalty, that commitment, means Oklahoma City is experiencing something it hasn't felt since the Kevin Durant era. They have a dynasty. They have a franchise player who actually wants to be their franchise player. They have SGA. He doesn't just play in Oklahoma City. He owns it. He represents it on the biggest stages in the world. The NBA Finals, Paris Fashion Week, the Super Bowl, the Met Gala. Every time SGA shows up anywhere in the world, OKC shows up with him. That is what a king does for his kingdom. And that, gang, is the full, complete, no stone unturned breakdown of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's massive Oklahoma empire. We went from a 15-year-old kid leaving Hamilton, Canada and moving to Tennessee with nothing but a dream, to a one-and-done Kentucky star who came off the bench for the first 6 games of his college career, to the trade that sent him to OKC, the trade the Clippers probably have nightmares about to this day, to quietly becoming the most dominant scorer on the planet, to winning the NBA championship and both MVP trophies in the same season, and joining the 11 most elite players in NBA history, to negotiating a $285 million deal by himself and saving $11 million in the process, to building a resort-style French country mansion in Nichols Hills, to owning a $6.1 million second home in Canada, to a Mercedes-AMG G63 and a Cybertruck sitting in a 3-car garage, to being the undisputed king of NBA fashion, walking into Paris Fashion Week in the Met Gala and the Super Bowl, to Audemars Piguet, to Converse creative director, to a Valentine's Day wedding with his high school sweetheart from Hamilton, to crying at the MVP podium because his love for Haley is too big to hold in, to baby Aries dribbling on the Paycom Center hardwood after playoff wins. This man is not just an NBA player. He is not just rich. He is not just stylish. He is a whole era. He is a man who came from a regular Canadian city, moved countries at 15 with a dream, built everything from the ground up, stayed humble enough to keep his high school sweetheart by his side, smart enough to negotiate his own historic contract, loyal enough to plant his roots in Oklahoma City and make it his city, and talented enough to be mentioned in the same breath as the 11 greatest players who ever played this game. He owns Oklahoma City, he owns Fashion Week, he owns his own contract, he owns his legacy. And honestly, we might only be watching the beginning. If you learned something new today, you already know what to do. Smash that like button, drop a comment letting me know which fact absolutely broke your brain the most, and subscribe because we are dropping more videos just like this one very soon, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.
Here's the tricky part about the Los Angeles Lakers. Austin Reeves deserves this raise. In today's NBA economy, Austin Reeves getting over $40 million a year, in this case over $45 million a year, he's deserved it. He's put in the time, he's put in the work. He's a hell of a basketball player. He's grown and he's matured. Pressure doesn't really faze him. The brother can play. He deserves all the credit in the world. He's earned this raise. He's earned this contract. And Austin Reeves, again, I emphasize, in today's NBA economy, making over $40 million a year is about right. A little bit too much. Some would argue he ain't worth $45, $46 million a year. That's fine. But Austin Reeves deserves to get paid. And so the first order of business is going to sit back and congratulate him.
Stop what you are doing and listen to this. An undrafted player just signed the richest contract in NBA history for anyone who was never selected in a draft. 4 years. $185 million. And the moment that number hit the internet, people everywhere started asking the same exact question. How does this guy actually live? Because when you hear $185 million and you hear Los Angeles Lakers and you hear the franchise that gave us Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James, your brain goes somewhere specific. It goes to Beverly Hills compounds behind iron gates. It goes to garage collections with 8 figures worth of automobiles sitting under LED lighting. It goes to tables that restoration cost more than most people's rent. That is where your mind goes. That is the picture the money paints. And for Austin Reaves, that picture could not be more wrong. But here is the thing. The truth about how he lives is somehow more insane than all of that put together. Let us break down exactly how we got here and why the story that just unfolded is one of the most unexpected things professional basketball has ever produced. The name is Austin Reaves, born May 29th, 1998, Newark, Arkansas. Population under 2,000 people. Not 2,000 registered voters, under 2,000 human beings total in the entire town. That is the world that produced one of the highest paid players on the Los Angeles Lakers. And that detail matters enormously because everything about who Austin Reaves became as a player and as a person traces directly back to what it means to be from a place like that. His parents, Brian and Nicole Reaves, were both college basketball players at Arkansas State. His mother averaged 21.3 points per game and earned all conference honors as a senior. His father tied for third in program history at Arkansas State with 384 career assists. This was not a household where basketball was something you did on weekends for fun. It was the family language, the family obsession, the organizing principle of daily life. Austin grew up on a farm spanning over 300 acres. That is not a metaphor. That is literal farmland, physical labor, early mornings, the kind of upbringing that either builds you into something or breaks you before you ever get started. For Reaves, it built him. His older brother Spencer also played college basketball and went on to play professionally in Europe. And Austin has credited Spencer for sparking the original fire. That competitive environment inside the family home meant that even before he stepped on a court in New Jersey, he was already being shaped into something harder and more durable than most prospects who will eventually chase the same dream. At Cedar Ridge High School in Newark, the production he put up was extraordinary by any standard. He won back-to-back Class 2A state championships in his first 2 high school seasons. In one game, a triple overtime contest against Forest City High School, Austin Reaves scored 73 points. 73 points in a single game. He was not yet 20 years old. He was a high school player in rural Arkansas, dropping 73 in a game that barely registered on any national recruiting radar. As a senior, he averaged 32.5 points, 8.8 rebounds, and 5.1 assists per game, leading Cedar Ridge to a Class 3A state title. He was named tournament MVP after averaging 43.3 points per game across 4 state tournament contests. The numbers were historic. The attention was not. He came out of Cedar Ridge with 2 stars next to his name on the recruiting databases that decide which teenagers get treated like future professionals. His only significant offers came from South Dakota State and Arkansas State. He committed to Wichita State in the Missouri Valley Conference and packed his bags for Kansas, knowing that nobody in the national basketball conversation had any particular interest in what he was going to do next. This is where it gets interesting. Entering his freshman season at Wichita State, Reaves underwent surgery to repair a torn labrum in his left shoulder, an injury he had been playing through since his junior year of high school. He had been competing at that level, putting up those numbers with a torn labrum for over a year. He averaged 4.1 points per game as a freshman in a reserve role while his body healed and his game adjusted to the college level. His sophomore season saw expanded minutes and improved production, and after 2 years at Wichita State, he decided to transfer and step up in competition by moving to the University of Oklahoma in the Big 12. The Big 12 in 2019 and 2020 was one of the most ruthless conferences in college basketball, full of future NBA players and high major programs with championship histories. He sat out a transfer year, used that time to weight train and add 20 pounds of muscle to his frame, and then entered the Oklahoma lineup ready to do what he had always done: prove people wrong. As a redshirt junior at Oklahoma, Reaves averaged 14.7 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, and was named to the Big 12 All-Newcomer team. But his senior season was the one that demanded full attention. On March 7th, 2020, he dropped 41 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds against TCU. He personally led a 19-point second-half comeback and hit the game-winning shot with half a second on the clock. As a senior, he averaged 18.4 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 4.6 assists per game, earning first-team All-Big 12 honors and leading the Sooners in scoring, rebounds, and assists simultaneously. That combination, leading your team in 3 separate categories at one of the most competitive programs in college basketball, is not something most guards produce regardless of their recruiting ranking. It is the kind of statistical footprint that belongs to players who understand the game at a level that athleticism alone cannot manufacture. Reeves made the right read before the defense made the wrong one. He put himself in positions to dominate without dominating possessions in a way that hurt his team. Oklahoma coaches gave him expanded responsibility because every time they gave him more, he performed better, not worse. That is the fundamental test of whether a player can scale, and he passed it every single time. He was the first player in Oklahoma history to record a triple-double since 2017. In the second round of the NCAA tournament, he scored 27 points in a loss to top-seeded Gonzaga on the nation's biggest college basketball stage. Against the best team in the country, he was the best player on the floor for significant stretches. NBA scouts were watching. The reports were respectful but cautious. The consensus landed somewhere between late second round and undrafted. Skilled, smart, consistent, but not a natural first round conversation. That assessment was about to become the most expensive mistake of evaluation the league had made in years. June 2021, the NBA draft came and went. 60 picks. Austin Reeves was not one of them. But here's the part of this story that most people still do not fully understand. The Detroit Pistons had told his camp they planned to select him at number 42. He was going to be picked. That pick was available. That NBA guarantee was sitting there. And Austin Reeves told them not to take him. His agent communicated to the Pistons directly, if you are not offering a fully guaranteed contract, do not draft him. The Pistons would not commit to a fully guaranteed deal, so Reeves walked away from being selected in order to control where he went. He removed himself from draft consideration deliberately, entered the undrafted free agent market, and then negotiated a 2-way contract with the team he actually wanted to be on, the Los Angeles Lakers. On August 3rd, 2021, he signed with Los Angeles. He had looked at the landscape and made the calculation that the right situation, even without a guaranteed draft slot, was worth more than the wrong situation with one. In a world where most prospects at that stage are simply grateful to be selected anywhere, he bet on himself. The entire story of what follows is the payoff on that bet. His rookie season introduced Austin Reeves to the world in a way that the scouting reports had not prepared anyone for. On December 15th of his rookie year, he scored 15 points on 5 of 6 shooting from 3, grabbed 7 rebounds, and hit a game-winning 3-pointer in a 107-104 win over the Dallas Mavericks. That play went everywhere. That was the moment a wider audience started paying attention. His ability to perform in moments that matter on a franchise with that level of scrutiny, in games with playoff implications, it was not supposed to look that natural for an undrafted player in his first NBA season. In the 2021 2-2 season finale against Denver, he posted the first triple-double of his career. 31 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists in 42 minutes. The Lakers converted him to a standard NBA contract before his first season was even finished. Then in the 2023 playoffs, his reputation expanded into something that the whole league was forced to acknowledge. In his first NBA playoff game ever, a first-round game against the Memphis Grizzlies, he scored 23 points in a 128-112 win. He matched that in Game 4 of the same series, leading the Lakers in scoring in a 171 overtime victory. The team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis was leaning on their undrafted guard in the fourth quarter of playoff elimination games. That is not an accident. That is a player who had built the trust of the most scrutinized franchise in the sport. One possession at a time, one early morning at a time. He re-signed with the Lakers in July 2023 on a 4-year, $54 million deal. For context, that number was already below market for what he had demonstrated. But it was the structure of that deal, specifically the $14.9 million player option built into the final year, that created the mechanism for everything that came next. He had options built in not because the Lakers were doing him a favor, but because both sides understood his value was tracking upward faster than any contract could accurately price. His 2024-25 season was the best of his career. He became the primary offensive running mate for Luka Doncic after the blockbuster trade brought Doncic to Los Angeles. He averaged 23.3 points per game, shooting 49% from the field and 36% from beyond the arc, and added 5.5 assists and 4.7 rebounds. He was one of only 3 players in the entire league to average at least 20 points, 5 assists, and 1 steal per game while posting a true shooting percentage of at least 62%. The other 2 were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic. He did it while sharing possessions with one of the most ball-dominant players on the planet. The argument for his value had become mathematically impossible to dismiss. Then came June 2026, and the number that changed everything. According to ESPN's Shams Charania, Austin Reaves declined his $14.9 million player option to pursue a new deal. The Los Angeles Lakers agreed to a 4-year maximum contract worth $185 million, with a player option in the final season in 2029, 3-0. In year 1, he will earn $41.3 million. Year 2 brings $44.6 million. Year 3 is $47.9 million. And the player option in 2029, 3-0 sits at $51.2 million. The deal made history immediately. It is the richest contract ever signed by an undrafted player in the history of the National Basketball Association. Not just recently, ever. Rob Pelinka, the Lakers' president of basketball operations, had been clear throughout exit interviews that retaining Reaves was the organization's top priority. The Detroit Pistons were prepared to offer him maximum level money. The Brooklyn Nets had also expressed interest. The Lakers did not wait. They met with Reaves and his agents, Aaron Riley and Reggie Berry of AMR Agency, at the team's practice facility. And according to Shams Charania's reporting, they brought personalized AR Initio pillows and played his favorite country music in the room. That detail about the country music is not incidental. It tells you exactly who this man is and why that personality made everyone around him want to keep him. The fit with Luka Doncic was central to the organizational conviction behind this investment. Doncic requires specific things from his running mate. He needs someone who spaces the floor without disrupting his creative rhythm. He needs a secondary creator who can initiate offense independently during his rest minutes rather than simply standing around waiting to catch. He needs a defender with enough activity and IQ to compensate for the defensive style Doncic plays. Reaves satisfies every one of those requirements. He posted career highs while sharing the ball with Doncic rather than declining when a more dominant player arrived. That is extraordinarily rare. Players who thrive when stars are added rather than diminished are exactly the type of organizational building block that franchises pay premium prices to retain. The Lakers understood that losing Reaves to Detroit or Brooklyn would not just weaken their roster, it would fundamentally undermine the partnership they had built around Doncic. So they paid. They paid everything the cap structure allowed, and they paid it first before spending a single dollar of their remaining projected $50 million in cap space because he was that important. Now here's the part of this story that nobody saw coming when the number went public. $185 million, Los Angeles, the Lakers. And what did Austin Reaves do after the deal was announced? He talked about going home to Arkansas. His girlfriend Jenna Barber, who he has been with since they were teenagers at Cedar Ridge High School, she met him when he was 16 and she was 14, shared a photo of Austin lying flat on his back on a golf course, hands over his head in complete disbelief. That image went everywhere because it captures something that all the press releases and contract graphics cannot manufacture. This is a man who grew up on a 300-acre farm at a town of fewer than 2,000 people and still cannot fully believe what his life has become. That is not a performance. You cannot fake that. His father Brian was the one who put the foundation under all of it. In a widely circulated interview, Austin described exactly what that guidance sounded like. His father would sit him down and say, and this is a direct quote that became one of the most shared pieces of audio connected to his rise. You're from Newark, Arkansas, a town of 1,000 people. You're going to have to do more than everybody else. It's not going to be easy. He repeated that message in junior year at Oklahoma, pulling Austin aside during a workout and asking him directly, what do you actually want? Do you want to play overseas? Because you can do that right now without getting any better. Or do you want to be an NBA player? Because if you want that, you have to do more. And Austin Reaves did more. That conversation is essentially the origin document of everything that followed. The work ethic that built this contract did not appear overnight, and it did not emerge from some spiritual breakthrough moment. It was installed by his family on a farm in Arkansas before he ever set foot in an NBA arena. LeBron James spoke about Reaves in specific terms throughout their time as teammates. Anthony Davis referenced him when discussing what genuine trust among teammates actually looks like. The reputation for arriving before anyone else and staying after everyone had left was not the kind of thing that gets manufactured for press availability. It emerged from individual accounts across multiple voices over multiple seasons, none of whom had any coordinated incentive to say the same thing. At Oklahoma, he sat out a full year under transfer rules and used every available hour in that time to add 20 pounds of functional muscle. During NBA off seasons, he went back to Arkansas rather than staying in facilities full of trainers and resources. He found ways to continue developing in an environment that had none of the advantages of a professional sports infrastructure, because that environment was home, and home was where the work had always happened. The first and last out reputation is one of those things that gets attached to players so frequently in professional sports that it risks losing meaning. But in the case of Austin Reaves, the specific accounts from specific people across multiple seasons form something harder to dismiss than a generic compliment. Teammates who arrived early described him already there. Coaches who stayed late to review film described him sitting beside them. During the 2022-23 season, multiple reported accounts from people inside the organization described someone who was not just willing to put in extra time, but who had structured his daily schedule to create more of it. He identified weaknesses from game film and showed up the next day having already done the individual work designed to address them. That is not preparation. That is a system installed before anyone was watching in a gym in Arkansas, because his father told him he was from a town of 1,000 people and he was going to have to do more. His sponsorship deal with Travis Matthew, a lifestyle apparel brand that positions itself around golf, travel, and casual outdoor living, tells you everything about how he presents himself to the commercial world. His listed interests on that platform include golf, traveling, family, hiking, and the beach. He is not signing deals with luxury fashion houses. He is not building a brand around conspicuous consumption. He is not cultivating the image that $185 million typically cultivates in professional sports. He drives normally. He dresses without theater. He gives interviews that are direct and grounded and conspicuously free of the language. Athletes at his level are usually advised to deploy to protect their brand identity. He wears shoes from Rigora, a Chinese sports apparel company he signed a signature deal with in 2023. At a time when most players at his trajectory would have been chasing Nike or Adidas, he made the deal that felt right rather than the deal that looked biggest. The conversation around undrafted players in the NBA has its own Hall of Fame. Brad Miller went undrafted in 1998, survived the G League predecessor era, and became an all-star center in 2003. Ben Wallace went undrafted in 1996 and became a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year and an NBA champion. Udonis Haslem went undrafted in 2002 and spent 2 decades in Miami, winning 3 championships and becoming one of the most respected locker room presences in league history. Bruce Bowen went undrafted and built an entire career around a kind of specific defensive value that championship teams cannot win without. These are legitimate stories. These are players who rewrote what the undrafted label could mean, but none of them signed a $185 million contract. None of them became the second highest paid player on a franchise building around a perennial MVP candidate. The ceiling that those stories established was real and inspiring and meaningful. And Austin Reaves walked through it and kept going. Every season that the category of undrafted NBA success stories gets updated, it now gets updated with a reference point that no previous entry in that category could have provided. When people ask young players coming out of smaller programs what the realistic ceiling looks like for someone not selected on draft night, the answer used to involve making a roster and carving out a role and maybe, over 5 or 6 years, becoming a reliable contributor. The answer now involves a guy who averaged 23 points per game alongside a top 3 player in the world and signed for $185 million on a franchise with 17 championship banners. The benchmark moved. The entire conversation moved. What Austin Reaves did was not just win for himself. He made the ceiling visible for every player who had been told the ceiling was somewhere lower than where they actually wanted to go. What makes the comparison between expectation and reality so striking is how completely his life defied the script that Kind of Money usually writes. When the news broke, the internet did what the internet does. It built the narrative of a small town kid finally getting to live large in a big city with big money and big spectacle. Comments flooded in imagining the cars, the house upgrades, the shift from humility to celebrity. And then Austin Reaves talked about going home. He mentioned the farm. He mentioned the hunting trips. He mentioned the things he would do now that the season was over that had nothing to do with Los Angeles or the NBA or the lifestyle that a 9-figure contract is supposed to enable. His girlfriend posted a photo on a golf course, not a rented yacht, not a Lamborghini, a golf course. The contrast between what people expected and what they got from him was so complete that it generated its own news cycle. In a media environment designed to amplify the transformation of athletes into celebrities the moment the money arrives, Austin Reaves generated more engagement by refusing to transform than he ever would have by leaning into the spectacle. The authenticity was the story. The tractor was the story. The girlfriend on the golf course lying on the grass in disbelief was the story. None of it was staged. None of it was advised by a branding consultant. It was just a guy who grew up on a farm, got very good at basketball, made $185 million, and went home. That is not a character. That is a person, a real one. Professional sports rarely gets to show people that. Sports commentators who had never particularly focused on Austin Reaves were suddenly talking about him because the genuineness of his reaction to massive wealth was itself the most interesting story in the league for several days. His German passport is a detail that captures how the less obvious parts of his background tell the bigger story. His grandmother's German, which entitled him to German citizenship. He obtained a German passport in 2022. He expressed interest in playing for the German national team in 2023 before ultimately joining Team USA for the World Cup. There is a guy with a 2-star recruiting rating undrafted out of Oklahoma holding a German passport, averaging 23 points a game alongside Luka Doncic in the Western Conference. The life that assembled itself around Austin Reaves does not follow any pattern that any algorithm could have generated from his starting data. The question that his story raises is the one that people in professional sports have been debating since he first started earning real minutes in purple and gold. Does betting on yourself still work in the modern era? The obvious answer, looking at the outcome, is yes. He turned down a guaranteed draft slot, signed a 2-way deal with his preferred team, and ended up holding the most valuable undrafted contract in league history. The mechanics of the bet paying off are documented in public, but the honest version of the answer is more complicated. Bets on yourself only pay off when the skill is actually there, when the opportunity arrives at the right time, when the organization deploying you uses you correctly, and when your mental composition allows you to perform in high-pressure environments without collapsing under the weight of the moment. All 4 of those variables converge for Austin Reaves. Most of the time, they do not converge for everyone who makes the same bet. What is different about his story is that he controlled more of those variables than most people can. He controlled his destination, he controlled his preparation, he controlled his habits and routines, and the kind of teammate and professional he was from day one in that organization. So here's where we stand. A kid from Newark, Arkansas, a town of under 2,000 people, a 300-acre farm, a 2-star recruiting profile, back-to-back state championships at Cedar Ridge, 73 points in a triple overtime high school game that barely made the local papers, went to Wichita State, transferred to Oklahoma, averaged 18.4 points and earned first-team All-Big 12 honors as a senior, told the Detroit Pistons not to draft him, signed a 2-way deal with the Los Angeles Lakers on August 3rd, 2021, and 5 years later became the highest paid undrafted player in the history of the National Basketball Association. $185 million, $41 million in year 1, a player option at $51 million in 2029, 3-0 that he will almost certainly decline because by then he will deserve even more. His dad told him that being from a town of 1,000 people meant he would have to do more than everybody else. He did more than everybody else. He did more than everybody expected. And now he is going to go home to Arkansas, probably get on a tractor, maybe go hunting, spend time with Jenna, call his brother Spencer, who was playing professionally in Germany, and come back to Los Angeles next October as the highest paid undrafted player the sport has ever produced. That is the full story. That is the real insanity. And honestly, it is better than anything anyone could have scripted. Somewhere in the hills of Bel Air, there is a house sitting on top of a mountain that overlooks the entire city of Los Angeles. And I mean the entire city. You can see the ocean, you can see downtown, you can see everything. Now, most people look at a view like that and think, man, I wish I lived up there. But there's one man who looked at those hills and didn't just wish, he bought them. But here's the thing that gets me every single time I think about this story. The guy who owns those hills He grew up sleeping on floors. He grew up not knowing where his next meal was coming from. He grew up in one of the most dangerous and poverty-stricken cities in the entire state of Ohio. And somehow, that same kid now has a real estate empire in California that most Hollywood celebrities can't even come close to touching. But we're not just talking about houses today. We're talking about cars that cost more than most people's homes. We're talking about jewelry that could fund a small country. We're talking about business moves so calculated that even the billionaires on Wall Street had to sit back and take notes. And the wildest part is that this all started with one decision. One single decision that most 20-year-old kids would never have the nerve to make. So ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about LeBron James, his California empire, and exactly how a kid from Akron, Ohio ended up owning the hills. Now, to truly understand what LeBron James has built, you have to go back, way back, because the empire doesn't make sense without the foundation, and the foundation of LeBron James starts in the place that nobody dreams of growing up in, Akron, Ohio, specifically the Elizabeth Park housing projects. Now, if you've never been to Akron, let me paint the picture for you. This is a city that used to be the rubber manufacturing capital of the world. Goodyear, Firestone, all of them had their roots there. But by the time LeBron was born in 1984, most of those factories were gone. The jobs were gone. And with the jobs went the money, and with the money went everything else. Akron had become one of the most economically depressed mid-sized cities in the entire country. Crime was everywhere. Opportunity was nowhere. And in the middle of all of that was Gloria James, a single mother, 16 years old when she had LeBron. 16. Think about that for a second. She was barely old enough to drive a car as she was raising a son by herself in the projects with no money, no support system, and no real plan. There were stretches where the lights got cut off. There were nights where they didn't have food. There were weeks where they moved from apartment to apartment, couch to couch, floor to floor, just trying to survive. LeBron has talked about this in interviews. He's described waking up in the morning not knowing if he'd have breakfast. He's talked about the instability, the constant moving. In 1 year alone, LeBron missed more than 80 days of school because they kept having to relocate. 80 days. That's almost half a school year. And this wasn't because his mom didn't care. Gloria James loved that boy more than anything on this planet. But love doesn't pay rent. So how did LeBron James escape all of that? Well, the answer is basketball, obviously, but the real answer is a little more specific than that. When LeBron was around 9 years old, a man named Frank Walker took notice of this kid who just seemed to have something different about him. Frank Walker was a local youth football coach, and he saw LeBron playing around the neighborhood and decided to take him in. Literally take him in. LeBron moved in with the Walker family for a period, got stability for the first time in his life, structure for the first time in his life, and it was through Frank Walker that LeBron got his first real introduction to organized basketball. That introduction changed everything. By the time LeBron was in middle school, people in Akron already knew something special was happening. By the time he got to St. Vincent St. Mary High School, the entire state of Ohio knew. And by the time he was a sophomore in high school, ESPN was broadcasting his games nationally, his high school games, on national television. This had never happened before, not like this. LeBron was doing things that grown men in the NBA couldn't do. He was 6'8" by the time he was 16 years old. He could see the entire floor like a point guard. He could score from anywhere. He could pass like Magic Johnson and defend like nobody's business. Sports Illustrated put him on their cover when he was 17 years old and called him the chosen one. And for once in sports media history, the hype was not exaggerated. Now here's where the story gets really interesting, because even before LeBron played a single minute of professional basketball, even before he was drafted first overall by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2003, the sneaker industry had already come knocking. And not just knocking, they were practically breaking the door down. LeBron James was 18 years old, fresh out of high school, never played a professional game, and Adidas walked up to him with a check for $10 million. $10 million to sign with them and wear their brand. For an 18-year-old kid who grew up not being able to afford dinner, you would think that $10 million would be a no-brainer. You would think he'd sign that thing before the ink was even dry. But LeBron said no. Now let me sit with that for a second, because I need you to appreciate how insane that is. This is a kid who grew up literally broke, who watched his mom struggle every single day of his childhood, who knew what it felt like to have nothing, and someone puts a check for $10 million in front of him and he says, "Nah, I think I can do better." That right there tells you everything you need to know about how LeBron James thinks. Because while Adidas was offering $10 million, Nike came in with a deal worth over $90 million. $90 million. For an 18-year-old who hadn't played a professional game yet, Nike bet on LeBron James harder than anyone had ever bet on a rookie athlete in history. And LeBron and his team had the vision and the patience to wait for it. That Nike deal didn't just make LeBron rich, it changed the entire landscape of athlete endorsements forever. It proved that the right athlete with the right brand at the right moment was worth more than anyone had previously imagined. And over the years, that relationship between LeBron and Nike has grown into something that makes that original $90 million deal look like pocket change. In 2015, LeBron signed what became known as a lifetime deal with Nike. A lifetime deal, not 5 years. Not 10 years, lifetime. The reported value of that contract, over $1 billion. LeBron James became the first active NBA player to become a billionaire, and a massive chunk of that is directly tied to the decision he made as an 18-year-old kid to turn down $10 million because he knew he was worth more. And here's what makes this even more remarkable. LeBron didn't just take the Nike money and spend it. He invested it. He built with it. He used it as the foundation to create a business empire that extends way beyond sneakers, way beyond basketball, and way beyond anything that most people thought an athlete from Akron could ever dream of building. His company Spring Hill Entertainment, which he co-founded with his best friend and business partner Maverick Carter, has produced films and television shows. Space Jam: A New Legacy, documentary series about his life, partnerships with major studios. Spring Hill was valued at over $750 million. LeBron also has ownership stakes in Blaze Pizza. He invested in Liverpool FC, one of the most famous soccer clubs in the world. And he has stakes in media companies, tech startups, and production houses that most people don't even know about. His current net worth sits at approximately $1.2 billion. Let me say that again, $1.2 billion from the Elizabeth Park housing projects in Akron, Ohio. The kid who missed 80 days of school in 1 year, the kid who didn't know where his next meal was coming from, that kid is a billionaire. But you know what billionaires do? They buy real estate, and nobody in the NBA has done it quite like LeBron James has done it in Los Angeles. When LeBron James made the decision to sign with the Los Angeles Lakers in 2018, he didn't just move to a new team, he moved to a new kingdom, and he made sure his kingdom had the real estate to match. Let's start with the crown jewel. LeBron purchased a mansion in Bel Air that sits in one of the most exclusive zip codes in the entire world. And when I say mansion, I don't want you picturing some nice big house. I want you to actually visualize what we're talking about here. This property spans over 13,000 square feet. 13,000. For context, the average American home is about 2,000 square feet. LeBron's Bel Air mansion is roughly 6.5 times bigger than the average American home. And that's not even the most impressive part. The house features a full-size movie theater inside. Not a home theater with a big TV and some nice seats. A movie theater with a projector, a full screen, theater-style seating, the whole thing. It has a wine cellar, a full bar, multiple living areas that are each bigger than most apartments in New York City. The master bedroom alone has a sitting room attached to it that most people would consider a luxury apartment. And the master bathroom? Marble everything, a soaking tub that overlooks the canyon, a shower system that probably costs more per month in water bills than some people's rent. But what really makes this property something else is the outdoor space. The backyard of this home has a resort-style pool that wraps around the back of the property. And because this is Bel Air and because this is LeBron James, the pool area comes with a full outdoor kitchen, a cabana, and views that will genuinely make your jaw drop. On a clear day, you can see the Pacific Ocean from this property. You can see the hills, you can see downtown Los Angeles sparkle in the distance. It's the kind of view that people pay $10,000 a night at hotels to try to replicate, and LeBron wakes up to it every morning. The reported purchase price for this property was around $23 million. And knowing how the Los Angeles real estate market works, that property has almost certainly appreciated significantly since he bought it. But here's the thing about LeBron, one house was never going to be enough. He also owns property in the Beverly Hills area that he purchased for around $36 million. And this one is a different kind of special. Where the Bel Air property feels like a mountain fortress above the city, the Beverly Hills property is more of a compound. It sits on a larger plot of land, has multiple structures on the property, and has that old Hollywood glamour feel to it. This is the kind of property that old school movie stars would have owned back in the golden age of Hollywood. The kind of place where you could host 100 people for a party and it wouldn't even feel crowded. Between multiple Los Angeles properties, we're talking about a real estate portfolio in California that is worth somewhere in the range of $80 to $90 million. When you account for all of his holdings and appreciation, this is not a guy who bought a nice house when he moved to LA. This is a guy who bought an empire. And it's not lost on me that this is the same person who used to move from apartment to apartment in Akron, Ohio, just trying to keep a roof over his head. Now he has roofs, multiple of them in Bel Air, in Beverly Hills, and they're some of the most valuable roofs in the most expensive real estate market in the United States. Now, if you really want to understand how LeBron James lives day to day, you have to talk about what's sitting in those multi-car garages attached to those Bel Air and Beverly Hills properties. Because LeBron James has one of the most impressive car collections of any athlete on the planet. And what I love about his collection is that it tells a story. It shows you exactly what he values and exactly how his taste has evolved over the years. Let's start with the crown jewel of his garage, the Rolls-Royce Phantom. LeBron has been spotted in multiple Phantom configurations over the years. And if you know anything about cars, you know that the Phantom is basically the definition of automotive luxury. We're talking about a car with a starting price of around $450,000. But that's the starting price. LeBron's configurations, with the custom paint jobs, the custom interiors, the personalized touches, these things push well past the $500,000 mark. The interior on a Rolls-Royce Phantom is hand-stitched leather, real wood trim, and a level of craftsmanship that you have to see in person to truly appreciate. This is not a car, this is a moving penthouse. But LeBron isn't just about ultra-luxury sedans, he's also a Lamborghini guy. He's been seen in the Lamborghini Aventador, which is a car that produces over 700 horsepower and goes from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. The price tag on one of those sits at around $400,000. And again, with LeBron's custom touches, you could throw another $100,000 on top of that without blinking. The Aventador is everything the Phantom is not. It's low, aggressive, angry, and absolutely outrageous. Where the Phantom says, "I have arrived," the Aventador says, "I got here before you even knew I was coming." He's also a Ferrari guy. LeBron has been spotted in the Ferrari 458 Italia, which is one of the most beautiful cars Ferrari has ever made. There's something about the 458 that car people lose their minds over. The proportions are perfect. The sound it makes when that engine opens up is unlike anything else in the world. And LeBron has been known to push that thing on some of the winding roads up in the hills near his Bel Air property. I mean, if you got the car and you live in the hills, you might as well, right? And then there's his Maybach. The Mercedes Maybach is essentially what happens when you take one of the finest luxury cars in the world and tell the engineers to keep going. It's a car that executives and heads of state use. It has a partition between the front and back if you want it. It has airplane-style reclining seats in the back and has a refrigerator built into the center console. It is, by any measure, the most comfortable way to travel on 4 wheels. LeBron has used his Maybach as his primary transportation to and from the arena during his Lakers days. And honestly, I get it. If you've got a Maybach, you're taking the Maybach. His overall car collection, when you include all of the vehicles he's owned and commissioned over his career, is estimated to be worth somewhere between $3 and $4 million. And every single one of those cars is a world away from where he started. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention when people talk about LeBron's lifestyle, the jewelry. Because LeBron James might have one of the most impressive jewelry collections of any athlete walking the planet right now. And the way he wears it tells you something about who he is. Let's start with the watches, because LeBron is a serious watch collector. Not just someone who buys expensive watches to show off, but someone who actually studies and appreciates what makes a great timepiece. His collection includes multiple Audemars Piguet Royal Oak pieces, which, if you're not familiar, are some of the most coveted watches in the world. The Royal Oak starts at around $30,000 for a basic model, but LeBron isn't walking around with a basic model. He's got custom pieces, gem set versions, limited editions. We're talking watches in the $100,000 to $200,000 range sitting on his wrist on any given day. He's also been spotted with Patek Philippe pieces, which is essentially the Rolls-Royce of the watch world. If an Audemars Piguet is what a baller wears, A Patek Philippe is what you wear when you want to let people know you've crossed into a different conversation entirely. There are Patek Philippe watches in LeBron's collection that are worth over $500,000, and he's not keeping them in a safe somewhere. He wears them, he shows up to events in them, he walks into rooms and people notice. But what really makes LeBron's jewelry game something special is the chains. LeBron has been rocking custom chains throughout his career that are basically wearable art. He's got pieces with diamonds set so tightly and so brilliantly that they look almost unreal in photographs. He's had custom pendants made that reference his career, his family, his legacy, his brand. And these aren't your average jeweler pieces. These are commissioned from some of the top jewelry designers in the world. One of his most famous pieces is a custom diamond piece that references his championship wins. Another is a custom lion piece, which is one of his signature symbols. And when you start adding up the individual pieces in his jewelry collection, watches included, we're talking about a collection that's easily worth several $1,000,000. Some estimates put the value of his watch and jewelry collection alone at somewhere between $5 and $10 million. And here's what I find fascinating about all of this. LeBron grew up in a neighborhood where people hustled for gold chains because having a chain meant you had made something of yourself. It was a symbol of success in a world where success was hard to come by. And in a lot of ways, LeBron's jewelry collection is the most extravagant possible continuation of that same mentality. Except now, instead of a small gold chain from a local jeweler in Akron, it's a custom diamond piece worth $250,000. The kid didn't forget where he came from. He just leveled it up beyond recognition. Now let's get into the day-to-day of how LeBron James actually operates, because the assets are one thing, but the lifestyle is something else entirely. LeBron takes his body incredibly seriously, and the level of investment he puts into his physical maintenance is almost incomprehensible. He has spoken publicly about spending over $1.5 million per year just on his body. $1.5 million per year. That includes his personal trainers, his nutritionists, his chefs, his massage therapists, his recovery specialists, and all of the equipment and technology that goes into keeping a 39-year-old man performing at an all-star level. He has a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. He uses cryotherapy. He has a full training facility essentially built into his home so that he can work out on his own schedule, his own terms, in his own space. His personal chef prepares meals that are specifically designed to his body's nutritional needs on any given day, depending on whether he's playing, recovering, or in the off season. This isn't just eating healthy. This is a full nutritional science operation running in the background of his daily life. Every meal has a purpose. Every calorie is intentional. When LeBron travels, he doesn't do commercial flights anymore. Private aviation is the only way he moves. And when you're flying private, the experience is different in every possible way. You show up when you want, you leave when you're ready. The cabin is configured to your specifications. You can sleep, you can have meetings, you can have dinner at 30,000 feet. For a man who plays games in cities all across the country and has business meetings in New York, Los Angeles, and everywhere in between, private aviation isn't just a luxury. It's a logistical necessity. His Bel Air home has a full spa setup, not just a nice bathroom, an actual spa, treatment rooms, massage tables, steam room, sauna, the ability to have a professional spa experience without leaving your property. And for LeBron, whose body is his primary business asset, having that kind of recovery infrastructure at home is as important as any investment he's ever made. The wine cellar in his Bel Air property is stocked with bottles from some of the most prestigious vineyards in the world. LeBron has developed a genuine appreciation for fine wine over the years, and his collection reflects that. Some of the bottles in that cellar are worth thousands of dollars individually. He has talked about discovering wine as one of the unexpected pleasures that came with his success, and it's become one of the more refined aspects of his luxury lifestyle. But here's what I want to leave you with, because I think this is the part of the story that matters most. Everything LeBron James owns, every car in that garage, every watch on his wrist, every square foot of Bel Air real estate, every business deal and equity stake and production company, all of it exists because of decisions. Intentional, disciplined, sometimes risky decisions made by a kid who had every reason to fail and chose not to. The decision to turn down $10 million from Adidas because he believed he was worth more. The decision to not just take endorsement checks, but to demand equity, ownership, and a real piece of the companies he aligned himself with. The decision to move to Los Angeles not just to play for the Lakers, but to be in the entertainment capital of the world, where his business empire could grow in ways that were impossible anywhere else. The decision to invest in his body like it was his most valuable asset, which for the first 20 years of his career it absolutely was. When LeBron James sits in his house in the hills of Bel-Air and looks out at the city of Los Angeles sprawling out beneath him, he's not just looking at a view, he's looking at proof. Proof that the kid from the Elizabeth Park projects made it. Proof that the kid who grew up moving from floor to floor, couch to couch, who missed 80 days of school in a single year, who watched his single teenage mother struggle every single day just to keep food on the table. Proof that kid ended up owning the hills. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the LeBron James California Empire.